Screen. There we go. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. I want to say again a big thank you to Mark Hart, who is watching the door for us, doing all the administrative side, but more importantly, posting and hosting all of these sessions on the web. There's roughly about 95 plus or 100 sessions plus, and he's got closer to 200 sessions plus or even more than that. Actually, no, it'd be closer to 400 sessions plus on the OC Callers website. So there's a lot of material for you to go back and have a look at on any of these topics. And as always, if you have a topic that is of interest, let us know and we'll see if we can find somebody or make a presentation on it and open it up for discussion. And speaking of that, that's where the topic for today came from, which is formation management. And I didn't, when I advertise this, I put formation versus FASR management. And I'll get into the why I said versus, because they are two very separate things that work together. One's a component part and one's a complete picture. But I was very disturbed by some of the comments that I got from a number, actually 5 new callers, and then some subsequent calling comments from very experienced callers when I asked questions about what do you teach as formation management. And what they were teaching is, well, they need to know how to set up a corner box, how to set up a partner line, how to, et cetera, and talking about the entirety of an action and a whole holistic description of where dancers are, which really is not where you start. So I decided to do this session. And let's take it back a step. I believe in going back to the basics of learning what's important and foundation first before you learn things like FASR and all that other kind of stuff. So I think the best place to start is by setting the parameters that determine the difference between a formation and a FASR. And we all know FASR is formation, arrangement, sequence, relationship. And that means that if there's a difference between those two, there's also a difference between formation management as opposed to FASR management. And FASR management is more known commonly as a choreographic management method, of which there are at least 5. And they lead for one thing, and that's mainly to get to the corner. They're resolution technique methods of controlling and manipulating dancers under your control. Formation management is a part of those, but it is a foundation principle. When most schools and callers and teachers talk about formation management, they very quickly delve into the identification of things like corner box and partner line and across the street box or right-hand box out of sequence, or even funky formations like a 3/4 tag leading to a solution or leading to a resolution. Okay, I'll state it very clear. Those things are very important things to know and eventually understand, but that is not managing a formation. That's managing a choreographic sequence, which leads to a resolution for which you're also trying to teach. You know, you've got to take the steps to get there before you can say I'm there. And what you need to learn is how to organize and understand what formations to move in and out of formations well before you get into formation, arrangement, sequence, and relationship. All these subjects work together, but they are independent from one another. And it's important that you understand the basic of separate management and control of each aspect. So I asked this question, which do you think is most important? And of course, the answer is formation, at least in my opinion. Understanding formation and how to use a formation simply and easily is the most important part of being a caller, because without a formation from which to work from, none of the other aspects of choreographic management apply. You cannot have an arrangement without a formation. You can't have a sequence without a formation. You can't have a relationship without a formation. Okay? None of the rules of square dancing can be used. None of the choreography can be used. No sequence can be identified. No dancer arrangement can be specified or anything else without a formation on which to build it on. So just like in real life, without a structure to define it, there's no such thing as any kind of lasting arrangement, any sequence of events, or any relationship that will last and be strong. And also in real life, like in square dancing, there's a myriad of different types of structures which define relationships. Most of these things are what we call transient structure that reoccur. In life, it's things like you live in a place, but you might regularly take a bus stop, take a bus to go somewhere, or occasionally take a taxi to get somewhere. Those are things that happen frequently in life, but they're not a normal part of it. It's just something that happens because you need to do something else. Each of those things has a structure and is defined short-term arrangement when it happens in life, following a sequence of events and defined relationships of people that are involved in the transaction to that purpose. You go to the bank, you have a transaction with the bank teller. You go to the grocery store, you have a transaction with the grocery store sales clerk, or somebody asking where a product is. There's a structure, there's an arrangement, there's the formation of the store, all those things that go there that happen little time, they repeat in life over and over again. But generally, these things in life are fleeting, just like a friend, an acquaintance, or just a momentary glance. You see the same guy at a bus stop, but you may never have contact with him. Well, square dancing is no different than life in that respect. In our group of social interaction of 8 people, we pass through a myriad of these types of structures, and we call those formations. These things give us a quick transitive reference point to let us know where we are. And most of the time, we have a brief and fleeting interaction with another person in that formation. The reality is, however, just like in life, those fleeting passing moments at a bus stop or a taxi stand or a store that you may only visit at Christmas time, square dancing has a lot of structured places too that are very, very transient. And those transient places that you visit are formations. Color Lab has taken the time to define many of these and whittle them down to, I think they've defined 79 pictorial representations of formations that are commonly used in square dancing, and the names attached to them, and that'll be included in the handouts. These 79 formations are just like real life. They're structures which most of the time we just pass through. We don't really need to spend a lot of time focusing on them unless there's a specific reason we need to go there. Just like the specialty Christmas shop. We don't need to spend a lot of time thinking about it until Christmas time where there's something special we want to go. Until there's a special thing that we want to achieve, we don't have to worry about a lot of these formations. Nevertheless, even though you may walk or drive past hundreds of buildings in a day and see people or certain structures that give it meaning, from those, almost every other transaction in your life builds. Common themes become repeated. The structure and form make a basis for everything else that governs your life. The trip to the grocery store, you have to do that every week. You have to stop at the gas station and put gas in your car. You have to perform that function every week. The coming back home at the end of each day, you have to perform that function each day. There's a recurrent interaction with the same people on a regular basis. Well, in square dancing, at a club, a regular get together for a coffee or a chat, these are the common structures and formations in life. So if you can get in here, that parallel square dancing, you've already got the springboard in which all these things are going to build from in the square dance, those repetitive, recurrent, common structures or formations. Now, in my opinion, and it is my opinion, there's 14 formations that every new caller needs to eventually know and understand and to build from. And we're going to look at each of these in a little bit, but there's some things that got to be understood first. But of the 79 formations, only 14 of them are important. And most of those you already know before you even picked up the mic to call. Okay. Managing these formations is not about identifying who is with whom or understanding what you can do from one formation to move to a different formation and whatnot. It is simply, I'm here. What do I do? Where does that take me? What can I do from there? That's it. I don't care about who's with who or what they're doing, only that they can do what I can. Now, there's some very common movements that are done from each of these formations, and they're also part of formation management understanding. So at this point in a caller's life, when you think about it, if you are a caller that is teaching other callers, a caller that is teaching dancers, mentoring, or a brand new caller, this is applicable to you. Don't inundate them with all the stuff that they don't need. Get them to understand the basic foundations of formation management, moving from one to another. And this comes from a knowledge of the movement definition and the movement mechanics of each of those movements. But for the purpose here, let's simplify it even more. when we talk about movement mechanics or moving, these definitions that we use that move us from one place to another and do something, we've got two types, and they are movements that keep or preserve the formation that we're in, and we've got change movements. These are movements that change the formation that we're in. Those are it. There's two types. You don't have to go any deeper than that. You don't have to know, this takes me from a inverted whoppity splash gobbledygook to a diamond hourglass super whatever. Okay. Is it the same? Is it different? Those are your only two options. What this means is when you have a formation and you decide to call something, because you know the definition and you know the movement mechanics of it, you should know whatever call you use does to the formation. And the question you're asking is, does it keep the same formation or does it change it to something else? And the question is, why is this important? Well, it's important because many calls can be done from formations, but not all calls can be done from all formations. And you as a caller have to know what the formation is. Can I call something from here? When I call it, does it keep the formation or change it? What's the new formation if I do call something and it changes? And if it doesn't change, what else can I call after I get back to the same place? This requires a technical analysis of the call that you're going to use and an understanding how each call works mechanically. So if you haven't been introduced, or if you're teaching or mentoring, one of the early things you need to do is teach them the movement mechanics of each call. And this is where your call analysis sheet comes into play. It's not enough to just know a formation and what can be called from there, but you must know what the outcome of the call is and aspects of things like which hand is used, which hand is free at the end, which way is the body turning, all of that stuff. And all of that stuff is learned from the basic movement mechanics before you're even picking up the mic and learning to call. Okay? Take your time and do the steps one at a time. So the secret to easy formation management is call analysis. So here's a secret for new callers. Do these three things when learning formation management. When you start calling, do these three things. The first one is the hardest. Just do it. Get up and walk yourself through the movements. Use your hands when you're practicing by yourself in your living room or in your bedroom or wherever you do this. You're going to quickly feel what feels right, what feels wrong. If I do star through and square through and right and left through and I do every movement is right hand to right hand to right hand, you're going to feel that. Over exaggerate those movements because that's what your dancers are going to feel. Just get up and do it. Then you'll have an understanding of what the movement mechanics are. Take it away from the paper on your desk. Number two, practice with yourself. Make a practice of, after your call analysis, practice things like, okay, I visualize I'm in facing lines. I do touch a quarter. Where does that take me? That takes me to a right-hand column. I'm in an 8-chain-4 position. So I've done a head square through as an example. If I call swing through, hey, I'm still in ocean waves. I've got the boys in the center. Boys run. Great. I'm now in two-face lines. I'm practicing the form. I don't care who's partnered with who. I just looking at the formation. What can I call? Where does it take me? And the third and most important thing, it's okay to make mistakes. There's an old expression, good judgments come from learning and learning comes from mistakes. Mistakes come from bad judgment. So when you practice and you do it, you're going to say things like star through, followed by right and left through, followed by reverse flutter wheel. You're going to do that. Horrible, horrible choreography. Guess what? We've all been there. We've all done it. But by doing it and practicing it and doing your call analysis, you're not only going to learn what you can call, but you're going to feel what seems right and what feels wrong, and you'll have a better understanding of why. And that will take you a long way in managing these formations. One thing you've got to note in here so far, I've talked about formations. I've talked about movement mechanics. I've talked about the understanding of a formation description and moving from one to another. What I have not talked about is arrangement, sequence, or relationship. Because at this point, if you're a caller teacher, a new caller, a mentor, or a journeyman, it's important to first understand what a movement does to a formation and how it feels doing it. So please trust me on this. When you understand this basic concept and you understand managing formations from one to the next, you're going to very quickly understand the ASR, the arrangement, sequence, and relationship of choreographic management, because it will naturally start falling into place a lot quicker, a lot easier, and it'll become much simpler and easier to deal with when it does come time to learn those aspects. So if you can accept that, let's talk about formation management. I noted earlier there are 79 listed common formations for square dancing according to Color Lab. Okay, I can tell you now most of these fall into the category of transient passing formations. In fact, 65 of them do. Okay, they really don't matter to most experienced callers. They really don't matter to most journeyman callers, and they definitely don't matter to new callers. Why they're there is as a point of reference. If I say to you, if I'm in a 3/4 tag position with the heads paired up on the outside, I've now told you where every dancer is in the square. Why have I told you that? Because I want to have you and I speaking the same reference point so that we can move the dancers to achieve a purpose. It's a reference. It's a description. That's all it is. It's not something that you need to worry about because you're not going to be in that formation for very long. So in my opinion, for new callers especially, there's 14 formations that are necessary to learn. And even those, you don't have to learn all at once. Okay, there's some basic ones and you build from there. These are the important event structures in square dancing. These are like your home in life, you filling the car up in life, you're buying groceries in life. These are the important things that constantly repeat and you structure your life around them. I have to get groceries at this time. I have to do this at this time. You know, I have to go home at the end of the day. Okay. Everything else will flow from and back to, because these are repeated, recognizable, comfortable foundation structures that all the rest of the formations in square dancing launch from and come back to. So it's just like taking a journey. There's lots of ways of getting from point A to point B, and there's lots of places you're going to pass through on that journey. But there are certain things that you plan and consider along the way so that you're familiar and you're comfortable and you're assured that this trip is going to be successful. You got to plan. How long is it? How much gas have I got in the car? Have I got my luggage packed? You know, do I have to stop for meals? You plan all those out. Well, those are your formation structures. Just in square dancing, you plan it out. There's certain formation structures that you're going to recognize and use. Once you know where they are and you can recognize them, you're more willing to explore all those little roadside stops along the way. Okay? But you've got to get the basics first. I'm going to present them here with the most common movements that relate to those 14 structures as they fall. So the first formation that you've got to know is a standard couple. Okay, this is the only formation in which arrangement is really necessary, is understanding a standard couple. That's two dancers standing side by side, facing the same direction, boy on the left, girl on the right, or the person dancing as a boy on the left, the person dancing as a girl on the left, right. And I do say boy and girl or lady and man because it is important. Okay, don't get into this nonsense of non-gender this and non-gender that. Square dancing is a gendered activity. You can have two boys dancing, you can have two girls dancing, but one is dancing the man's part, one is dancing the lady's part. And yes, there are men's and ladies' parts. So accept that and you'll be a lot better off right off the top. Okay, the next one is a facing couple. Pretty self-explanatory, but probably one of the most important formations that you have to understand. This combination sets the foundation for 85% of all the square dance movements up to mainstream. And it's the basis from which managing an 8-person formation comes from. Things like star through, right and left through, pass through, any of the chain movements like ladies chain, flutter wheel, all those other kinds of things. Those are your foundation things that change or keep structures. And if you can see it in a facing couple, you're well on your way to managing a square. The third one is the normal square. And your common moves are forward and back. Head couples do something, side couples do something, 4 ladies or 4 men do something, or face your corner, face your partner, do something. Those are your foundation movements from the square. There's a lot of other things you can do, but those are the most common. And of course, the normal circle. All dancers are facing into the center of the circle with their hands joined. That's it. Join hands. Hey, guess what? We've got a circle. And your common movements are circle left, Alaman left, or gendered square movements. Ladies do this, men do that, ladies in, men sash, you know, so on and so forth. Those are your normal circle movements. There's a lot of other things you can do. Okay, so those are your base 4. And everybody knows those already. Okay, an Alamo Circle. Now, people ask me why I include that, because it is important. Okay, the men are facing in the circle, the ladies are facing out, or reverse. Okay, your common moves are balance and swing through. The reason this is important, it is a circle formation, but it also sets a template for other things, understanding how far is this, how far is that, which hand is used, all those other kind of things. So to me, it is an important formation because you're going to do something in it. You get into it deliberately and you get out of it deliberately. It's not a transient formation. Number 6 is lines facing in. And your common movements are forward and back, pass through, and star through. Okay, I know you can do any of the couple stuff there, but those are your formation movements that are common for facing lines. And of course, lines facing out, pretty self-explanatory. You're standing back to back with the other line. Your common movements are wheel around, wheel and deal, and bend the line. And then of course, you've got 2 face lines where you've got the center dancers holding hands and each couple is facing a different direction so that they're all on the same circulating path. And because they're on that path, you've got circulate, wheel and deal, Ferris wheel, and bend the line. Okay, moving on. 9 is ocean waves. And when I say ocean waves, I say parallel ocean waves and other ocean waves. Now you got to remember, all of these things, or most of these things, are 8 dancer formations. Yes, I know they're boxed and the rules of diagonal symmetry and all that apply, but these are your 8 dancer formations. Okay, and what you normally do with these is swing through or boys run, girls run. Those are your common formation, common movements from that formation as a unified movement within that formation. Number 10 is the 8 chain through box, or the parallel boxes, or the 8 chain 4 formation. Okay, basically says the end couples are facing in, the center couples are facing out, and they're facing the end dancers. Okay, each dancer could be facing their corner, you know, or could be facing someone out. But the common movements are, of course, Allemande left if you're facing your corner. You've got right and left through, which is a 2 couple movement, and you've got touch a quarter. Those are your commons. A double pass-through formation, pretty self-explanatory. Centers are facing couples, and they're followed with a couple standing behind them. And your common movements, double pass-through or centers pass-through. Number 12 is the completed double pass-through, which is all dancers are facing out, but they're still on that track. You got lead couple facing, you got a trailing couple standing behind them. And your common movements are cloverleaf, centers in, or first couple go left, next couple go right. Those are your common movements. There are a lot of others, as I say, but those are your common formation movements. And I'm listing those because with those common movements for these formations, you've got a lot of material available to you without having to go very far. The last 2, trade by, which has the end dancers facing out and the center dancers facing each other in the middle. And of course, the common movement is trade by or centers pass through. And the final common formation, number 14, is a column. And that's simply one dancer lined up behind another with 4 facing one way, 4 facing the other way, and their hands joined in the center, okay, between the 2 opposite rows. And your common movements are circulate, boys run, or girls run. Now, as I said, there's many, many other formations that exist. And depending on who you talk to, they're equally as important as these formations. I don't disagree, but in my personal opinion, which we all know is worth nothing in the grand scheme of things, other formations and the importance and repetition in the structure is more a matter of preference, experience, and choice. And those that have added other things that repeat more often in their repertoire have done that by learning all of these basic formations, basic 14, and then building from them, not the other way around. They didn't learn to call from a quarter tag formation. They learned how to get to a quarter tag, and they learned eventually, oh, you know what, I can use this a lot for a lot of things. They understood the basics first. Similarly, there's a lot of other movements that can be called from each of these formations, but again, that becomes a matter of experience. choice, and preference that has been built through a long process of doing it, practicing it, making mistakes, and learning from those mistakes to create a good, structured formation management foundation. Now, one of the things you may have noticed is there's no colors, there's no sequencing, there's no arrangement. We don't know who's with who in these diagrams. All we know is we got a boy on the left, girl on the right in most cases, and they have a structure on which I can do something. That's what's important to learn first. Okay, don't worry about resolution. Don't try and follow the dancers with resolution until you know how to move the dancers in and out of formations. What does what? Okay. This is a topic that's going to have many opinions, but remember, we're talking about the difference between formation management and choreographic management. And there is a big difference between the two of those. Unfortunately, many callers and teachers today are saying it means the same thing. It does not mean the same thing. It's not about changing a corner box to a partner line or changing a static square to an RBO. Okay, that's choreographic management. And it really, choreographic management, in my opinion, has one purpose, and that is a focus on controlling the dancer's movements to either resolve the square or put him into a position to use a modular site resolution technique to do something specific that you want. That's the difference between the two. Choreographic management deals with FASR in a complete structure and resolution in a complete structure. And it's a technique that will come later in development. This is about managing the formation, just the formation, with simply understanding where am I, as in what's the formation I'm in, what can I call from this formation? That's the movements and mechanics of the individual calls, which you get from your call analysis. And then understanding, if I call that, what does it do to the formation? Does it keep it or change it to a new aspect or a new formation? Okay, that's what's going to allow me to know what can I call next. Okay. Because we're not worried about the ASR of FASR, those aspects of management we're not worried about, and we're not worried about in moving the dancers from formation to formation to maintain the ASR. It's important that what we concentrate on is what individual movements do to the formations that we're working with. And it's boiled down to two questions again. Do I keep it or do I change it? Okay, so let's have a quick look at this. If I have facing couples, okay, a keeper, ladies chain. Actually, this would probably be easy to show on terminations, I think. Okay, so if I call, there's my formation, facing couple. Is ladies change a keeper or a changer? Anybody? I can't see you, so you'll have to call it out. Hello?
It's a keeper, Mel.
It's a keeper.
It's a keeper. Ladies chain. Okay. Even though they're not with the same people, I have changed the formation. Flutter wheel, is that a keeper or a changer?
Keeper.
Keeper.
Flutter wheel. It's a keeper. Even though I've moved dancers around, it's the formation that I'm managing. What about pass through?
Changer.
Changer.
Okay. It's changed from facing couples to couples back to back. What about partner trade?
Changer.
Changer.
It's a changer. What about star through? I've got facing couples.
Keeper.
Keeper.
No, it's a changer. And the reason it's a changer is because even though I started in facing couples and I ended in facing couples, what has changed?
The
Rotated.
direction.
Orientation.
The orientation or the axis. So that's what you have to look at. If I'm going to change the axis, even though I may start in facing couples and end in facing couples, if I change the axis in two couple dancing, what happens if I change the axis in four couple dancing? I manage the square. So I would go from facing lines to parallel boxes. Definitely a changer. Changing the axis, the direction they're facing, or changing the formation position so that it's not the same as what you left. Those are your changes, and there's not a lot of keepers. Okay, that's your ladies change, your flutter wheels, your right and left through. Those kinds of actions are your keepers. Most everything else is a changer. And once you recognize and understand that, there's really not a lot to remember after that. What's important here is to recognize that most two-couple movements have the same or a similar effect on an eight-couple formation, or on an eight-person formation, or a four-couple formation. And that's because of that principle of diagonal symmetry. What one side does, the other side does. You don't need to understand all of that right now. All you need to understand as a new caller is that if I change two couples on one side, the other two couples are going to change the same. And they just have to accept that. Okay. If you're mentoring somebody, you don't want to say, okay, well, due to the principle of diagonal symmetry, and I've got the number one man here and he's with the number three lady, and on the opposite side, well, I've got the number three lady with the number three man with the number one lady. And because I change these two will change the number two and the number, and you've lost half your floor there, or half your student audience. What you do want to say is, hey, I haven't changed on this side, so I haven't changed on that side. I have changed on this side, so it has to change on that side. That's as far as you need to go, because we're only managing the formation. Okay? And when you understand that, when you understand that, you know that a change in two couples is a change in the structure of the formation, or a change in the aspect or direction of the formation, the direction they're facing. And when you get that, you can really begin to see and manage formations in the larger groups of four couples. What you will also notice is you're able to manage the direction and flow of the dancers from formation to formation in two couples without worrying about anything beyond the standard arrangement, boy on the left, girl on the right, and getting them back there. You're going to manage the changing directions or the changing structures much easier. Beyond the boy on the left, girl on the right, we really don't care about arrangement, sequence, or relationship in managing two couples, moving them effectively. And so if we don't worry about it in two couples, we really don't have to worry about it in four couples at this point. What we want is natural progression. So natural progression is, of course, taking what we already know about two couple movements and expanding it into formation management four couples. And once again, we don't have to worry about arrangement beyond that standard boy on the left, girl on the right. And that's what our movement mechanics are for. Or getting them back to that standard boy on the left, girl on the right, because you will do things that will change that, past the ocean. I've now got, oh, okay, was that boy and a girl? Is that the form? Okay, I'm in this long kind of thing. What am I going to do here? Oh, I've got two girls together. I got boys on the outside, whatever. Okay, I can very easily recognize that and change it back to a boy and a girl. And of course, we all know that a boy facing a girl, star through fixes it. Boy and a girl, boys run or girls run, fixes that. It gets them into that kind of pairing. We're not concerned about the sequence or the relationship, only the understanding of managing the formation in the limited concept of what are we in? What's the formation we're in? What can I call from here? That's our call analysis options. And knowing that if we call something, it's going to take me to one of two other options, either the same formation or a different formation, that being a different axis or a different setup. Okay. And the fourth thing is, how do we repeat that process with control? Essentially, when you understand the basic formations, those 14 formations, and you go through the repetitive process of organizing your thoughts, identifying the formations for the dancers are in, making a plan to call one of the options available from your call analysis, you're going to have the ability to direct the dancers to move seamlessly from one position on the floor to another position on the floor, to change those formations with you in control so that they're moving from one to the next and they're moving seamlessly back and forth. And because you already know this, you're already organizing the next cycle of progression, the next call, what they're going to do next, because you're recognizing the formation and you're planning what you can call from there. And it's just a cycle. It just keeps repeating over and over and over. You've organized your thoughts. You plan out what you're going to do. You direct the dancers to do that. You control their progress, which is going to take you to another organized structure, which is your formation. You've got a plan. And it's just a repeating circle of these gears going on in the caller's mind. Okay. In order to be successful at this, you have to start small and build. And you hear me say this on all aspects of calling. Start small and build from what you know. So, for instance, let's just stop share for a moment. Okay, let's just call it. Talk about keep and change. So we know right and left through. If everybody picture facing lines, or I can put it up on screen if you want. Let's actually put that up on screen. Let's see what happens here. I've lost my PowerPoint. Why is my PowerPoint gone? Here. And we'll get a standard square. Is that sharing? Can you all see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
My
Yes,
Yes.
contaminations?
yes,
Okay. So if I called from facing lines right and left through, we know that's a keep. We know ladies chain is a keep. We know flutter wheel is a keep in two couples. So is it the same here? Would a right and
Yes.
left through be a keep?
Yes.
yes,
Okay. What about reverse flutter wheel?
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
Okay. What about bend the line?
no,
No. Changes axis.
Changes axis. Where are we here? Okay. I just lost. What about star through?
changes,
Changes.
changes,
Changes.
Changes everything. What about touch a quarter?
changes,
Yes.
How about pass the ocean?
changes,
Okay, so if I've got the movements right and left through, ladies chain, flutter wheel, reverse flutter wheel, pass through, bend the line, star through, touch a quarter, pass the ocean, you can move from one to the next very, very easily and very seamlessly. And with those movements, you can control a flow on a floor. So let's just start. Somebody give me a movement. Tell me what the formation you're in is and what's the change. And then I'll type it in.
Okay, so it'd be a bend the line and it's an axis.
Okay, just bend the line. And where's that? What formation am I in?
So still the same, facing
So
line,
facing lines.
and it's an axis change.
Okay. So if I do bend the line, I'm still in facing lines, but it is a changer. Okay, someone else.
touch a quarter,
Okay, that takes me from facing lines to where?
columns,
Okay, someone else.
Split circulate.
Okay. Is that it? That takes me to what?
That's a changer, but it's still a
Is it a
column.
changer? It's
It-
not a changer, actually.
keeper,
Well, it depends on your view.
Okay,
Yeah.
because we're not worried about arrangement, we're not worried about sequence, and we're not worried about relationship. Yes, it changes dancers, it changes who's on the left, who's on the right, but does it actually change the fact that I'm in a column? If I took all the
I'll
if I
put it
took
to you.
all the gender
I'll put
out
it
of those movements, if I
I'll
took
put it
and made
another way,
everybody a
Mel.
square, it would
Mel.
look, but no.
Mel, can I just put it to you another way? You had a group of four, the boys were looking in and the girls were looking out. And so split circulate changed that from girls looking in to boys
Yes,
looking
yes,
out.
I
So
I understand that, Alan, but what I'm saying is terminations won't show me this with no gender. Okay, so if you pictured every one of those as a black circle and you didn't know who was with who, it has not changed the formation. It has changed the arrangement. It has changed the sequence. It has changed the relationship, but it has not changed the formation. Only when I need to go to my couples to do a movement that requires that, am I required to look at that gender thing. And that's what I mean. The formation itself was a right-hand column. It is still a right-hand column. If I do a circulate from here, it's a right-hand column. It's still a right-hand column. So the formation itself hasn't changed. And this is what I'm saying. For new callers, at this point, other than the standard boy on the left, girl on the right, when we get to facing couples or couples standing together, we don't worry about arrangement. We don't worry about sequence. We don't worry about relationship. Only the formation. All the rest of that, and what Alan's saying is absolutely correct, but that is the next progression. Okay. Someone else give me a call.
Walk and dodge.
Okay, I'm in a column. Is it a keeper or a changer?
Oh.
Danger.
Changer.
Absolutely. And what does it change me to?
Trade by.
Trade by.
Into it, it changes me into a trade by formation.
Mhm.
Okay. Is face in a keeper or a changer? Nobody's actually moving anywhere on the floor.
Changer.
Danger.
It changer because it changes. Okay.
Mhm.
Do I know who's dancing with who? Some of you probably do. Some of you probably don't. But it's not really the important part about this. What's important is you do it one step at a time and being able to repeat that process. Okay. You've got to start by learning your movements and your movement mechanics and understanding what they do to two couples. And then by accepting that, what is going to happen? Try and picture it without gender other than the standard arrangement. And that's only for dancer manipulation in your call analysis. And understand that I'm moving a formation to a formation. I'm not worried about arrangement. I'm not worried about sequence. I'm not worried about relationship. Practice using this and then expand it into 4 couples by practicing movements one at a time, one formation to the next formation like we were just doing. And then you expand it even more, doing it 2 movements at a time. Okay, by doing 2 movements, but you name the formations it goes through. So for instance, from facing lines, I would say pass through takes me to lines facing out, bend the line takes me to lines facing in. Okay, I'm doing 2 movements at a time. And then you do it 3 movements at a time. And then eventually you're going to be like Alan, because Alan not only thinks like 5 or 6 movements ahead, he's on about 3 or 4 different dimensions. And I will never be half the choreographer that he is. Okay. But even guys that had that kind of a mentality for choreography started by learning the basic foundations. When you do this, you've got to be aware of movement mechanics, handedness, and body flow. Then you move it up to 3 and so far. And again, you're aware of movement mechanics, the hand availability, and the body flow.
A good
Now, you've got to
example.
know.
A good
Sorry?
example, Mel. A good example is if you take a simple call like circle 4.
Yeah,
How many formations can you set up just using that call?
absolutely. Circle 4 halfway is a keeper, even though you've moved the dancers around. But circle 4 3/4. Oh wow, that's a changer. Circling 4 into whatever formation does all sorts of things. From a static square head, circle 4 3/4. Now I've changed everything. Excellent example. Okay. There are formations where you can transit a formation using a 2 couple mover to create or fix a condition. Now, sorry, what was that, Ross?
Don't worry, I was just talking to Matt. Sorry.
Okay. So this is why it's important. And like what Alan said with the split circulate, that's a 2 couple mover. It's not a 4 couple mover. It's a 2 couple mover. And it's important to understand the difference between a 2 couple mover and a 4 couple mover, because a lot of the times, picture, for instance, I have boxes. Where's my terminations here? You see my terminations?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm managing a formation here. I've got parallel boxes. I can do this, but if I get, sometimes I'll get into something like this. Okay. Oh, what is that? Is that those parallel formations? Well, yeah, they're actually parallel lines, but you don't see them that way. So sometimes you have to do something with two couples, like Alan did with the split circulate, or you can do on half of the square. That's going to take me to a formation. That's why it's important to understand that 85% of your movements up through the mainstream program you can do with two couples, because it allows you to fix things. And one of the old analogies, if in trouble, do it double. I'm now back to a recognizable formation. That tidal wave is a transient formation. I moved into it. Yeah, it was there. It's the reality. But I got back out of it to something that is common. This one is ocean waves. This is going to buy groceries once a week. You know, it's something that's familiar and common for me to work from. And I set down what I'm going to do. I may plan different meals every day and have to do all sorts of variety to keep my family happy. But the one thing that's consistent is I have to go to the grocery store. I may use different choreography, but the one thing that's consistent is I'm going to use boxes, lines, waves, columns generally to set them up. One of those 14 formations. Okay. It's okay to take a step back and digest and play with what you know. I like to use the adage on when you're learning to call, the fastest way to slow down is to rush. If you try and get there and do it all at once, you're going to slow yourself down because it's just going to overwhelm you. Okay. If you take this approach, you're going to have greater mastery and control of the dancer's movements, the ability to move them comfortably from formation to formation, and the ability to move the dancers around the floor and interact both across the grid, up and down on both axes, so that when it does come time to worry about the sequence and the relationship and the arrangement for whatever you're doing, moving to resolution, you're going to have a much easier time getting the dancers where you want them to be and keeping them under your effective control. And this is what it's all about. This is the way the caller's mind is working. I'm in a static square. I want to go to a circle. I'm going to call circle left. Right. So I've got to this point. I've gone through. I could do heads lead to the right, circle to a line, go forward, all join hands, circle left. I've gone through all these machinations and gears to pick what the options are of my call analysis. And eventually I settled on circle left that came out, and that's going to take me to a static circle. Well, what's that going to take me? This is what the dancers get. The dancers get circle. This is you. This is their mind. Okay. If you want to do all of this and then include arrangement, sequence, relationship, choreographic resolution method, mental image calling, processing, and whatnot, without learning the base foundation to build on, you're setting yourself up for a lot of trouble and a lot of heartache. Right. Anybody got any questions or comments? Daryl's put a comment in here. I says, I wish I could stay for that. Unfortunately, Daryl's the cook. Yeah, Daryl's the chief bottle wash and caterer for the dances these days for the group. Yes, he said this is a very important aspect for anyone mentoring a new caller. This is a very, very solid foundation skill for any new caller, anybody starting out, but it's also a very important skill that anybody that's mentoring or teaching a new caller has to understand. Start them first at the beginning. If I started calling, and I like picking on Alan because I am the first one to acknowledge that Alan is a much better caller and a much better choreographer than I am, or probably ever will be. I love to pick on him.
You need to stop saying that, Mel.
Oh, why? It's true.
Oh, yeah.
And his mind works on dimensions and spirals in advanced calculus, where I'm still trying to add, you know, if I have one egg and I take away one egg, how many eggs have I got? I've got one because I took away one egg, you know. That's the way my mind's working. But I love to pick on Alan. And if Alan tried to say to me as a brand new caller, okay, Mel, here's what we got. You've got a corner box, and what you're going to do is you're going to invert and rotate this into this other corner box on the other side, but it's going to change the aspect on an axis, and then we're going to do a change movement, moving one of the dancers across from a parallel ocean wave using the movement spin chain through. But now we've got the facing couple rule is going to apply to this because we're going to do an ocean wave movement from facing couples, and that's going to take me to the same thing, but it's going to move this person across. And from there, I can do the recycle and sweep a quarter, and that's going to open me up into the facing lines where everybody is arranged in sequence. And I'm going to go, okay, well, it was a really nice meeting you, Alan. I'm just going to go back and enjoying dancing. Unfortunately, today, there's a lot of callers that don't differentiate between formation management and FASR management. Alan, thankfully, is not one of those because I don't know how much I've gleaned from him, and the same with a lot of other callers. But if you teach them and you're in the position to teach and mentor new people, this is where you want to take them. I've got Joe's hand up and I've got Brian's hand up. Joe.
Yeah, of your 14 formations, they're all circles.
Yes.
Flattened out is all they are. If you can have everybody face in, circle left, then you can promenade. You can, from there, decide, are you, in sequence, out of sequence, got a partner, don't have a partner, all that stuff. And if you look at it from that point, that's probably the most basic thought process of all those arrangements. You could probably, any of those right there from, waves. If the one's facing out, turn around, you all join hands, circle left.
Yeah.
This is something to look at with your checkers to see, well,
Does everybody understand what he means by the circles flattened out?
Yep.
Like if I have the head step into the center from a static square, yeah, I'm in a T-bone formation, but I'm still in a static square. A static square is still a circle. If I have the head step in, turn your back on your partner, I'm still in the same position. All I've done is just change a facing aspect of a dancer. So that's one of the reasons why circle is one of the most base 4 formations. Most everything you have stems from this formation or this formation, facing couples or circles. And it's just a matter of where they're facing. The reason I differentiate them is because 99% of the time, this is how you will recognize them on the floor rather than equating them to a circle. But the movement and the flow, absolutely correct. It's just, and when you think about it, with the exception of things like quarter tags or oddball formations like inverted hourglasses and stuff, there's not a heck of a lot of options of where dancers can be standing, only directions they can be facing. Did you have anything more to add to that, Joe?
No, that probably is the most basic thing I can think of.
I think it's a very good bit of advice too, because if you make a mistake as a caller and you're totally lost, then face in, back away and circle. And if you've got boys near girls somewhere, swing somebody and promenade home. At least you've
Absolutely
made a quick exit. And
the first resolution I learned was circle left. That was it. If you're lost, call circle left. That'll get somebody somewhere. Brian, you got your hand up.
So this isn't exactly on topic, but I had always heard that Brian Hotchkiss had some beautiful birds at home, and I thought he meant women, but apparently they're actual birds.
Yeah, those are sulfur-crested cockatoos.
Yeah, they were making a noise outside, so I decided to bring them in and quieten them down a little bit because they love attention.
They're the ones that mentor Brian on his calling and allow him to hit those high notes. Because if you've ever had your finger bitten by a beak of a cockatoo, believe me, you'll hit a high note.
I want to know, do they do 3-part harmony, Brian?
No. They just make a lot of screeching noises when they hear people inside the house that are not paying attention to them. But they are very lovely.
How old are they and how long have you had them?
I've had them all of their lives. One of them, this one here, I bought when I was a teenager. So she's in her 60s now. And the other one used to belong to my daughter, but she left home, but the cockatoo didn't. So it's about 25 years old.
One of the things that this will be in the resources I sent to Mark, and you can download it off the website as well, but I'm just going to share this with you. On the Color Lab website, there is a basic and mainstream, basic 1, basic 2, and mainstream are done, where they have, excuse me, where are we at? Come on. Okay, so this teaching resource am I sharing my screen? You can see I'm on the
Yes,
Color Lab
go
website there. Okay, so if you look at this, especially if you're a new caller, this is something I recommend that you get any new caller and any journeyman caller online here. You can use your own call analysis sheets, but this is, let's just look at mainstream, but they're all laid out the same. The movement is there. You have a definition. That's the current definition. You've got an explanation of what standard arrangement is, but you don't have to worry about that. It's boy on left, girl on the right. This is the important thing. You've got the call analysis, and it tells you what's good to precede this, what's good to follow it with. A lot of the basic standard work is done for you in reference. Okay, and a lot of work went into creating this resource, and it is an excellent resource. There's also modules if you are going to be teaching it. So for instance, you're teaching cloverleaf. There's hints and tips on how to teach it. There's suggestions for you to use, there's wording for you to use, and applications and little circular drills that you can use. This is very much in line with the concept of Bob Osgood's Old Caller Teacher Manual, but it's expanded out into a resource. There's other applications and other things about the movement, you know, going to another place. And then there's also, you know, extended applications, things that are beyond. Heads pass through in cloverleaf. So we're having one couple cloverleaf instead of everybody cloverleaf, and they've got these for them. It is an excellent resource. And another resource, so that's available on the Color Lab website. The other resource that I wanted to show you, this will be sent, is this. And this is a analysis on keeping and changing formation movements. And all it does is, these are ones that preserve or keep the formation. So for instance, two-face lines, circulates will keep the formation. If I'm looking at columns, circulates, keep the formation. That includes your split circulate. Trades, keep the formation. Okay, U-turn back, keeps the formation. Zoom, keeps the formation. Scoot back, keeps the formation. Those are things that in some formations, they will change it. In other formations, they'll keep it. You have to be aware. Like in waves, scoot back keeps. And then there's other ones where it will change the formation. And as you can see, there's a lot more changes than there are keeps. But that's just a sorry, go ahead.
Quick question. Is there a reason why some of them are colored red, or is it just that you're using it, doing it on a different day?
I didn't make this sheet up, but yeah, there is a reason, because a lot of these formations, when you change a fold, changes it into an oddball formation. Like depending on half tag, this can be called from some formations, but it may not be able to be called adequately from other formations. Like if your formation, for instance, is a double pass-through formation, you cannot call half tag. There's a restriction on what formation it can be called from. You know, there's different aspects as to why they're colored that way. And then as you go further on, there's partials. Box the Gnat is a partial change, depending on where you are, from a double pass-through, ocean wave. From a static square, slide through is a partial change. Or sorry, is a change formation, whereas Box the Gnat is a partial. Okay. But as you go through that, and as I didn't do this particular form up, but it is a good reference, and it's laid out in such a way that you can add a column, you can add your own notes, you can do all sorts of things with it. But for keeping and changing, remember, just start with your basic 14, what they are. And most people don't even consider these formations to manage, these four, but they are, these two in particular are the two, as well, this one, but these two in particular are the most important formations that you have, and especially this one. Because once you can move two couples, you can pretty much move a square effectively in and out of all the rest of those.
So Mel, go back to that sheet that you had up there that has the possible changes and possible keepers.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mike, I just want to make sure I understand that sheet. The column down below, the keeper part where it says changes, that's for that
Okay, so
formation,
this, yeah, this is the formation across the top.
right?
So a static square, we'll just look at this column here. Okay, so a static square, if I call heads forward and back or everybody forward and back, it keeps the formation. If I
Right,
call grand square, it keeps the formation. But in a static square, if I call Alaman left in the Alamo style, it
right.
changes the formation.
Okay.
So this is the movement. These are keeper movements. These are changes. In the next one, these are the movements. But like, for instance, if I have a static square and I call heads box the gnat, okay, that keeps the formation, but there is a partial action that happens there. So I'm dealing with two couples.
Right,
From a static square, if I call heads swing through, I've got an ocean wave, that changes the formation. If I call heads past the ocean, that changes the formation.
okay.
If I call heads slide through, that changes the formation significantly into another formation that is recognized. Why these are in red specifically, that's as far as I've got in the analysis of it. I actually don't even look at this part, the coloring. Probably have to talk to Joni. This comes from Square Your Dance. I'm not exactly sure who wrote it because it wasn't attributed, but I find it a very good reference for newer callers to understand what is keep, what is change.
Okay, thank you.
My wish is that in here, that you were able to actually portray the dancers without gender. Because if all of these were just simple black squares, you could really see formations and find out that the only things that you really have to worry about is boys run, girls run, or a standard facing couple. But you could see the difference between a formation and an arrangement there. And the only arrangement we're worried about, again, I stress this, is your standard couple arrangement. You want to get them there. If they get out of that, like when Alan was doing the split circulate from a column, we got out of that slightly standard. We're still boy on the left, girl on the right, or sorry, boy girl combination, getting him back to a boy girl. If I'm in an ocean wave that goes boy girl, boy run will get me back to that boy girl, that kind of stuff. That's as far as you need to know at this point, moving in and out of formations.
Hey,
Are
Mel,
there any? Yes, Brian.
uncheck the dancer shapes
Uncheck the dancer sheets.
on the right-hand side.
Ah, well, there you go. I didn't know that. Perfect. So now if I go, okay, so there's my column. There's my split circulate. It keeps the formation.
Yeah.
And it's very important. I can't stress enough. Learn to manage your formations. Start with two couples. For those of you that have been doing a lot of two couple Zoom calling, you'll have an advantage in this because you're learning to move two couples effectively. For those of you that use a Sicilian circle to review and refresh, You get the ability to move two couples effectively and seamlessly, knowing if I call star through, I know I'm in facing couples, but I've changed the aspect. I can do another facing couples. All I have to do is worry about which hand is free. Okay, I've done a star through. I've used my right hand. The lady used her left hand. What do I call next? Okay, do I call a right and left through? Yes, I can, but there's a right hand to a right hand movement. I might want to break that up into do, si, do. That's what the caller's mind is thinking in that 2 beats of music that it takes them to actually do the call. You'll go through 30 machinations in your mind. What can I call next? Where is this going to put me? And it will come faster and faster and faster with practice, so that you get your command time. You get your lead time, you get your command time, you allow the execution time, which is your time as a caller, to think of what can I do next, so that you can call what can I do next before they're finished what they're doing. That's where the practice comes. And I encourage you, as a experienced caller, as a journeyman, or as a newer caller, do it, practice it, and embrace your mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to learn from your mistakes. But unless you get up and do it and make those mistakes, it's just going to be an academic exercise on paper, and you will never get any better as a caller.
Mel, I think it'll help too. I've been having issues with trying to get flow with new callers. And it's because they're trying to think of too many things rather than just doing formation management. And so this should help flow as well for the newer caller.
Yeah. And like I said, when you can move the dancers from here, let's put the dancer shapes on. If you can move the dancers from here effectively without worrying about who's your corner, what you're going to find is you're going to start calling things like, from here, I can look at that and say, right, I've got a boy and a girl joined. I can call boys run, I'm in a double pass through. Centers pass through, I'm in a box. Swing through, I'm in parallel ocean waves. Boys run, I'm in 2-phase lines. Ferris wheel, I'm in a double pass through. Double pass through, I'm in a completed double pass through. Cloverleaf, I'm in the cloverleaf and everybody's half sashayed. I can do another double pass through in cloverleaf. I'm in a double pass through. Everybody's in standard couples again. Centers pass through. Square through 3. I'm in a trade by. I can visualize that in my mind. I have no idea who's with who. All I know is I've got a boy and a girl dancing together or dancing apart, and I can move one to the next, to the next, to the next. When I can practice that and move the dancers like that, 1 movement at a time to formation, then 2, then 3, and then you start visualizing not who's with who, not for resolution. I'm not tracking dancers. I'm tracking the ability to move comfortably from 1 movement to the next movement, what the formation change is, and carrying on. What you're going to notice is you're going to find things like little flow sequences that repeat quite often that are comfortable for the dancers. And when you do start adding on arrangement, sequence, and relationship, those things are going to save you so much time, because you're going to say, okay, Linda, I'm in this formation and I'm in a completed double pass through and I want to get into a standard box. Oh, what am I going to do? Oh, Linda's going to say, okay, face in, slide through. She may not know who's with who to resolve, but she knows that's going to take me to this formation that I'm comfortable with. Or if I say to Yolanda, I'm in a right-hand column and I've done an all 8 circulate, I've got the lead boy facing out and I want to start resolving, she can easily say, right, boys run, swing through, and circulate, boys run, Ferris wheel. I'm now in a double pass through, and she's comfortable with that center box for her resolution technique. She doesn't know who's where, but she knows that combination will take her to a place that she's comfortable with. It's going to take her to the same grocery store she buys her groceries for her standard, her milk, her bread, her eggs, and everything else. And then she's going to add on this. I'm going to make spaghetti bolognese, get the little bits and pieces of variety for the special meal that I'm having on Thursday night. Well, that's just like calling. She's going to go to the grocery store. Oh, good. Boys run, swing through, girls circulate. boys run Ferris wheel, whatever. Now I'm comfortable. I've gone to the grocery store and I've got my staples. Now, what specialty am I going to cook? Oh yeah, okay, that's my resolution technique. Square through 3, there's your corner. It's an analogy that if you can accept it, you're going to find you're going to move smoother. And once you can move from formation to formation, as Alan says, your calling in formation management and your flow will become much smoother, especially when you start adding the other aspects leading to resolution or setup for modules or that kind of stuff. Comments, queries? I see you're pursing your lips there, let me, Linda.
Oh, I'm just pursing my lips at myself.
The
Sorry.
hardest part about calling and caller training is when you see something like this on a PowerPoint presentation, or you've got somebody discussing it, it makes such perfect sense at that particular moment in time.
Yeah.
Once the presentation's over and you go home and you say, I'm going to have lunch, I'm going to get back to it, it suddenly doesn't make sense anymore. That's why the handouts and everything else are there. But that's why in this session, those 3 things, just do it, practice what you're doing, and encourage yourself to make mistakes and learn from them. If you can get those 3 things, that'll take you through every aspect of calling. That'll take you through every aspect of choreographic management. And you're just going to have to trust me on that.
What do you think about dancers who, when you miss the corner, give you a thumbs down?
Use it to your advantage. Okay. Here's a secret. I'm not that great of a choreographer. I will miss the corner in my sight calling probably just a little bit less than I get it. You know, I'm out of practice. I haven't called a dance in 7 months, and that was an open dance. I haven't called a plus or an advanced dance. I haven't called an advanced dance in almost 5 years. So if I'm going to sight call this, I'm probably going to miss my corner if I'm not preparing and using a lot of modules. And you know what? So what? I missed the corner. My dancers, if I took my dancers, is Tamination still up there?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's put our dancer names on here. There we go. And I'm sitting there and I'm calling and I go, heads, square through. Going through. Boys run. Ferris wheel. Centers pass through. Element left. Okay. So there's my prepared module. Okay, so there's my prepared module, and I'm going somewhere, and John has asked me to come to his club and call a dance. So I'm there for John. I get up there and I get up calling, and the dancing is going really, really well. Nobody can tell that I've got all of these things prepared, or I've got a bunch of modules prepared, and the only real stuff that I'm sight calling is a couple of get-ins, get-outs, and maybe doing some isolated sight, because I've never called to his club before. I don't know who's with who. It's going to take me 3 or 4 tips to get to know who's dancing with whom. Great. The dancers would love to dance like this, moving from one movement to the next movement to the next movement to the next movement. And then suddenly I think, you know what, John, I'm doing really good with your dancers. And I suddenly go, great, we're going to try something different. Head couples pass the ocean, just the girls pass through. Centers do a hinge from where you are, partner hinge. The others do, oh my God, where the heck am I? Okay, let's stop for a second. Okay, let's have the head ladies do a U-turn back. Just the boys pass on the diagonal and the girls make a left-hand star. Okay, meet your original partner. Just stop there. Good. Boys run. Heads bend the line. Sides do a single hinge. Stop, 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 stop. and I'm struggling, I may get them resolved. They're not dancing. They're not enjoying it.
One thing
But
you
if,
do, it just.
but
is-
if I,
Go ahead.
hang on a second, John. But if I call heads past the ocean, extend, centers trade, single hinge, scoot back, girls run around a boy, left touch a quarter, all 8 circulate twice, girls run, center forward to the right and left through, pass, I have no idea where anybody is, and then I go pass through, slide through to the corner, Alaman left, it's not your corner, and they go, whoops, and I go, whoa, well, I guess I better not have too many of them tequila sunrises before a dance again, ha, 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 and then I'll go back to a module and make a joke of it. The dancers will enjoy that a lot more because they're dancing. The flow is there. The sequence is there. What they can dance is there. They're moving. And guess what? I made a mistake. I made a mistake. I'll accept my mistake. And if I make a mistake, it's okay for them to make mistakes. I just have to minimize the amount of times I do it. And you get better by accepting that. If you've got a dancer that does this, boo, that's not your corner, and is constantly harassing you, I suggest you go back to the session I did with Don Beck on conflict resolution and personality management, because there's a very important session in there about how to resolve conflict and resolution. But the important lesson is sometimes, excuse the language, sometimes people are just assholes and you got to accept that, move on.
Linda, I would probably have a module up my sleeve that I can call that I know is going to give him a corner, but unexpectedly, like calling an Alaman left from a right-hand box, where you say Alaman left, right, and left grand, and they're giving you the thumbs down or whatever it is, and you say on the third hand promenade or something like this, so that I'm still in control here is the message you're giving them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a little routine that I use too sometimes. I don't get too many people doing, excuse me, thumbs down, because I think my dancers are a little bit more courteous. But if I get somebody like that, I'll sometimes pick that person, say it's the head man, and I'll say, head man, take your corner up to the middle and back, and box the net, pull by, and everybody Alaman left. And usually you find he'll go to his partner for the Alaman left instead of his corner, which is, it's probably rude, but it sort of settles the situation a little.
Absolutely. One
every
when I
now
was
and
calling,
then, every now and then
Sorry,
I'll
go ahead.
screw it up, and the dancers will just fix it. And I was so oblivious, I didn't know it was wrong. And then you know, before I start the next sequence, I see them doing an improv head lady's chain or something. And then I just always apologize. I'm like, oh, if it seems like all the squares did that, I'll just say something like, oh, yeah, I have the head ladies out. Oh, sorry about that. Just move on. Nobody.
Yeah, you move on or just.
yeah, I just want to interrupt a second because John actually asked a question. I don't think he was quite finished. So
Well, no,
let's
I
get
think
John.
it's not a question, but just the way it ends up with us, the groups I have, kind of make it a game, you know, get the wrong corner. Oh, that's one, you know, and just move on from there, you know, because we're not perfect, you know, so we're just going to hey, I messed up, find your corner and go home.
If you want to do something like that and really have an open dance, you can take one of Brian Hotchkiss' really bad jokes and turn that into you're nervous. And that was the one, man and his wife just got married. They get on the wagon. They're going back to their house and the horse stops. He says, giddy up, horse. The horse doesn't giddy up. He whacks. He says, that's once, horse. And the wife looks at him. The horse stops again to graze, doesn't go. Says, that's twice, horse. Giddy up. Horse doesn't go. He says, giddy up, horse. Horse doesn't go. He gets out and shoots the horse. And then the wife turns to him and says, Brian, that's a perfectly good horse. Why did you shoot the horse? And he says, that's once, wife. You tell that joke. And then when you make a mistake, make sure that your partner or somebody in that square stops and goes, that's once, Mel. It'll bring them into you. But what I wanted to say was the best advice I ever got, I was calling at a dance in Karlsruhe. I was a new caller. I was focused on resolution, not formation management. And I was not resolving the square. And I couldn't figure it out. I had either ladies cross or everything else. This club, I didn't know. Every time I would call Alaman left and promenade, they would go crisscross and start laughing, and I was not resolved. I was so frustrated at the end of it. I finally resolved it a couple of times. I did my singing call, which went well. And then I just said I had to leave the hall. I went out, smoked about 3 cigarettes in 14 seconds to calm my nerves. And the caller come out and he said, "You're going to be a good caller." And I said, "How do you mean that?" I could not resolve the square. They were laughing, they were joking. And I found out this crisscross was a joke that he played with his dancer, crossy, he does a lot of that Alaman left, wrong corner on the third hand or whatnot. And they would go crisscross with something they called out. When I resolved the square, they all went crisscross and laughed because it was the one time I actually got it right. And they all laughed. Well, they were laughing at an internal joke I didn't know about. He said, the secret of it is you had them moving from place to place. They were enjoying themselves. They were dancing. They were laughing. They were having a good time. They don't care if you don't always resolve them. As long as you get it right most of the time, if they're having a good time and laughing, you're going to be a good caller. And if you find somebody that is completely down and negative about your ability or what you're doing, but everybody else is laughing, it's like a downhill skier. You find a skier that's never fallen, avoid them. They're an idiot. They're not trying.
Okay, thank you.
What I did is I went, because I make mistakes all the time. So I just went, oops, was it something I said? And then I get them to face in, boys make a star, find your original partner. Or if it's totally messed up, you can just say screw yourself.
Thank you.
No, in line with that, there was one time actually where this even gets worse or better, however you're going to look at it. I was calling a dance and I couldn't see the floor for nothing. I mean, couldn't resolve anything. And my wife kind of finally got to the point of saying, one more mistake, I'm going to come up and kick you. Well, I did, and she did. So, just moving on and having fun with it. Just hey, we're not perfect.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And then you can always use the adage, you missed your partner, you missed your partner, you missed your partner. It says, hey, you don't like that choice? Don't argue with my choices, wife. I chose you. That'll work once. That'll work once.
If you keep missing your corner on sight calling, you can always drop back to zeros and equivalents.
Yeah. And
mental imagery.
I am an absolute supporter of when you go to call an open dance, you've got it prepared. You have a format, you have a theme that you want to go, whether or not you're an avid site caller or you're a modular caller, but I will always prepare modules. I'll not write it out, but modules that I can refresh at a glance from fixed points, corner box, partner line, etc. Resolutions from corner box, partner line that I can look and just say, great. I've come to the point where most of the time I can set myself up to a corner box, pair, or resolve from most places. But I will do that because I'm focused on giving the dancers a good flowing sequence. And if I'm having to work too hard because I don't recognize dancers on the floor, and we've all had them, that night where it doesn't matter how good your calling is, nothing seems to fit. You may have done this 1,000 times, but nothing seems to fit. It gives me something that I can step back, have a quick look at the screen that I've got on my screen with the modules that are there, or however it is I'm going to do it, and relax and know that I'm going to give the dancers a good, solid, flowing dance that they can do, that I'm prepared within my theme, that they can have a good time. And that'll boost my confidence. It'll boost their confidence in me, and everybody will have a much, much better time. Joe, you were nodding your head, and then I've got Chris with your hand up.
The one thing you said that really strikes good is even if you're sight calling, you want to have a theme for your dance. You need to build something and send them home either relaxed or if you have somebody in mind that you want to pick on, make sure you send them home high as a kite.
I like the term on a relaxed high. You're going to bring them right up then you bring them down just a little bit before the end, and then you bring them up, not quite as high as they peaked just before, but you leave them on an upward mobile so that they leave on a relaxed high. Chris, you had your hand up.
I was going to say two things. First of all, this is all excellent advice, and keeping the thing flowing and whatever is really good. And if you get if you're site calling or something, or however you're calling, or if you suddenly find yourself site calling because your module didn't work or something, just calling some a little bit of nice flowing choreography, which you should be able to just do off the top of your head, and you don't care where anybody is. Just call a little. Don't drag it out, but just go into that mode right away, and you'll be relaxed, and they'll be relaxed, and that might even help you figure out where you are. The other thing I was going to say is there's always a tension between, making a joke or whatever about the thing. And, we all will have our different jokes and our, different personality types for how we'll kid around with the dancers if we screw up or something like that. So, and that's all good stuff. On the other hand, don't screw up. Try really hard, try not to do it like more than once a night.
Well, that's always the dream, but like I said, we are human, we are fallible, we're not infallible, and you will make mistakes. The idea is to make fewer mistakes each time, but when you do make a mistake, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you use it as an opportunity for your own personal growth and acknowledge the fact, hey, I made a mistake. Why did that happen? It's because I called star through Alaman left, or I called square through 4 left swing through, or I call, and it just didn't work. I put him in an Alamo wave and I called left spin chain through, and I had dancers balk. Oh, well, we did that in the 80s. Yeah, but it's not the 80s. It's not allowed anymore. It's whatever the reason, it's a mistake that was made, acknowledge it, accept it. Even if it's not your mistake, accept it, absorb it, learn from it, because there's always a lesson learned and a lesson to be learned, and you move on, and you'll find thing. I just wanted to emphasize the one thing that Chris said. If you are calling a program dance and you do lose it, this little aspect of formation management we're talking about, being able to move from one to the next seamlessly, if you can disassociate, I'm trying to resolve with I'm just moving the dancers around comfortably, moving them. Basically, you're catching your breath, relaxing, and building confidence back in the dancers until you're ready to proceed. And that is a tool that nothing is going to replace the strength of that tool for your own personal confidence. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I just wanted to throw one more thing in the apologies department and the accept responsibility for the mistakes, even if it's not technically your mistake. The every now and then I'll call something that's too hard, probably in my case, or just wrong. You just every now and then you might screw something up, and it might just be that it was too hard, or just what for them at the moment, or just whatever the problem was. It doesn't matter. A thing that will come out of my mouth from time to time is, "Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have called that. That wasn't fair." I'll say that sometimes, and I'll let them know that, like, because you had some trouble down there, and just so you know, I really shouldn't have done that. And I think that dancers really appreciate that. I mean, these are all things you don't want to happen a lot of times, but that's something that they'll also respond to is when you tell them, it's not your fault.
I agree with that. I agree with that, because even when you don't have dancers saying you've made a mistake, and you get back home and it's obvious to you've made a mistake, so you own it. You say, "Oh, did I do that?" or something like that. And so straight away they've accepted the fact that okay, you realise you've made the mistake, and they're not going to make an issue of it. Yeah.
Had Brian and then Joe. Did you have your hand up, Brian?
Oh, well, no, I didn't, but I was thinking of saying something anyhow. You've got to do this in a really, really nice way, and not have the dancers think that you believe what you're saying, but I will sometimes, especially if there's another caller present, I'll blame it on the other caller. I'll say, by golly, Alan Kerr gave me that routine and he told me it would work. Next time I'm going to make sure that it does before I call anything from him, or something like that, you know. But the dancers will know that you're not really blaming Alan. You know that you're the one that's made the mistake, and I think it's important
Absolutely.
to own your own mistakes.
Absolutely. And in Brian's case, Brian, you've now been calling just over 60 years, I think, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Just over 60 years. So he's got a wealth of experience. And, you know, the dancers know already, because dancing with Brian, never to believe anything that comes out of his mouth.
One could say he's blamed for the callers in that time.
I had to take that, Brian, because you would have done it for me. We got Joe next.
You got to be so careful and know your dancers when you make those kind of jokes. But
yeah,
that's the other thing I'd say is any kind of comedy that you inject into things, you know, blah blah blah. Alaman left. You told me that would work, Mel. You know, or whatever. You got to really you got to be super careful. To you know, you really got to know your people to let them know that you're kidding.
Absolutely.
Joe, you had a comment.
Oh yeah. I'm younger than Brian. I've only been calling maybe 59 years. I think I can't, you know, memory's shot. Yeah, and Brian stole my my major thought that I was going to say was you need to learn defensive calling first off, not offensive but defensive. And one of the first rules of defensive calling is if you do make a mistake, you do blame it on someone else. Like he said, well, Alan gave me that figure, and I thought sure it was going to work.
You're getting picked on tonight, Alan.
Yeah, but it's like recipes, you know, you leave something out. But I think one of the things I might say in addressing the newer callers, possibly, and maybe some experienced callers who have a phobia against writing and reading. However, there are some very successful readers, writers, and our job is to give the dancers the best program we can. Now, if you call a challenge, for the most part, now, yeah, I used to call up through C4, and I could pretty well sight call up through C3, but you know, it wouldn't be the technical expertise that the dancers were looking for. Okay, the mainstream dancers or plus dancers or whatever, they're not looking for expertise. They're looking for success. So if you've got some really simple routines for when you draw those blanks, have them written out. There's nothing wrong with reading and writing as long as you can deliver. You have to be able to deliver it. You can't just write it and then say, okay, I'm going to go call this. You have to practice calling it, reading it. You have to be able to watch the dancers. You can't put your head down and ignore them for timing. But I found, you know, like the first time I tried my sight calling, stupid me. I went to Connecticut to call a guest dance, and I thought, I'm ready. However, it was February 14th. Put that picture in your mind. What were all the dancers wearing? Red. Well, you know what I did? I went back to old zeros and equivalents, you know, and had to save my sight calling debut for another night. But our job is to give the dancers a good dance. So you've got to have right material, commit it to memory. Those things are things you fall back on. When I make a mistake, I'll usually resort to some, I wouldn't say gimmick, but something I know that the dancers are going to really lock onto and like and say, oh, that's cool, you know, and they'll forget that you. Now, if you got dancers that are snarky enough to put you down for missing a corner, you know, maybe it's time to take them out to the woodshed and teach them some manners.
Not during the dance.
No. But you know,
I'm a firm believer of what you're saying there, Joe. And like memorization of an entire evening dance is very, very rarely. There's still, I think, 2 or 3 callers that still do this. They have their entire dance routine memorized, other than traditional callers, because a lot of them will do that. Then there's reading, where you have essentially the script of a play, and you're reading it as you call. And there's still a few callers that do that, and they're quite good at it over the years, but it's usually a very difficult method because it's so easy to lose your place. Written modules, you hear me use the term refresh at a glance. And I use a lot of those. I have a corner box, a partner line, a conversion, and a resolution from each of those, generally for any theme that I'm programming, that I will put up on the screen there on my pattern. I may or may not use it, but it's there so that I can have a quick look, say, right, corner box, good, swing through, girls circulate, boys straight, boys right. Right, I've got it. And it'll fit with my theme with the movement that I'm maybe highlighting. I will always have that there, because if I do get into trouble, and it does happen that you lose your ability to sight call because you don't know the floor, or you've got a group. I know if I went to Guido's group, suddenly his dancers, they love to, oh, I want to dance as a boy. We'll switch halfway through, or we'll flip squares halfway through, and we're going to change this and change partners halfway through. And you're trying to sight call on this. You'll see it happen. And then you just say, you know what, to heck with this. These short modules that are structured are building blocks that you can mix and match and mix and match. Each routine will feel like a different dance, but they're short enough that you don't have to stand there and read it. So with your 5 foundation modules, your 6 foundation modules, and a couple of simple modules, you can do it through any tip and never have to worry about your corner, because you're not really trying to resolve. You're moving the dancers, and that's what they're after, is a good time. And if you can deliver that, I don't care if you're doing simple calling or most complex choreography. If you get your dancers through with success and they're having a really good time, you are a successful caller, and you're one of the best callers in the world in my book. Because that's what it's about.
I am very thankful for Linda for bringing this particular question up, because we've got a lot of good feedback on this. Because I suspect, you know, especially the new callers are going to make the occasional mistake.
You will find dancers on the floor that are totally intolerant of new callers. You'll find dancers on the floor that will come to a student jamboree or a new dancer class to give support, and the support they give to the dancers is phenomenal, but they'll be bad mouthing the caller the whole time, especially if it's a newer caller. There are people like that. There's nothing you can do about it. Give the dancers the best time that you're able, and constantly seek to improve, and you will have that. I've got John, and then I want to hear how Mickey's dance went. John.
Yeah, following up from the glance at your cards, it'd be a good follow-up for that to bring Barry Wanson on and give us a lesson on speed reading.
That's actually a great comment. There's a lot of callers that will read their cards, have a binder, have all sorts of different things up next to the stage. And when they read, that's what they do, is they read, but they read their own shorthand, they read their own symbology, they read whatever it is that works for them. And sometimes it confuses the hell out of other dancers. I'm going to put up something here on contaminations to show you what I'm talking about. Where are we here?
I'll tell you a funny story when you're done.
Wow, Chris, you suddenly went high volume. Okay. So for instance, if I was, come on. Am I sharing screen? No. Can you see square view on your screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, the volume just suddenly went. Oh, that's because I opened up square view and it's on massive volume output. That's why. Okay, so this is a dance I prepared. Okay, so and you notice I've got these. This was A1 plus and basic mainstream. This is the patter calls over here. So each had a theme. So let's take Dolly Ho for instance. When the music starts, that's there. I think you can probably guess what the theme of this tip was going to be.
Spin the top.
Spin the top. I've got a fairly big computer screen, so this is a 22-point font. I can stand back. I may not need this. I probably don't need it for spin the top. But I've got a couple of things. Oh, I'm doing a hinge and a column zoom. I won't do that anymore because I need to circulate in there. But that was if I was calling in Germany, I would probably do that because that's pretty common to do the zoom without the circulate. But in most places, it's not. But I might do something that will be my singing call. I've already chosen my singing call that goes with the choreography of that theme. I've got my choreo. So if I can get to a corner box, I can call that module. There's my corner box. I can convert my corner box to a partner line. I can go corner box to partner line and then go partner line to resolve. I can go corner box to partner line, go partner line to corner box, call Alaman left. I can do all sorts of different things, just mixing and matching the modules if I'm not comfortable site calling. Or I can site call and just, I'm in a box. Well, I just need to relax. May not be a corner box, but I can call a corner box to corner box module. I'm in a line. It may not be a partner line, but I can call a partner line to partner line module and just take that momentary breath because I know that works. I know that flows because I practiced it. And then I can pick up where I left off. There's nothing wrong with having something like that. But you notice on mine, I write it all out and I write it out in longhand. Barry likes to use a star T. That's star through. Some people like to use ST for star through. But ST, other callers might use ST for square through. So some people will use an OL or a 0L. Is that a 0 line or is that the command circle to a line? You have to know what you want and be sure with it. And it doesn't really matter what terminology or what analogies or what shorthand you use or what kind of reading you use. You have to be comfortable with it. You have to be able to look at it and refresh at a glance. And if you try to get clever and short and fit it all in, you're going to find yourself having problems. Whatever method you use, be consistent with it always. Find something that works for you, and that's the best method there is. If it works for you, you can build on it.
I got one comment there, Mel, that I found when I first started out. I was more or less a caller that read a fair bit of stuff, and I found that you were better off having 2 calls per line, because if you read the entire line, you're then got time to focus on the dancers a bit more. Where when you got line by line, it's also the possibility that you're going to skip a line or miss a line. So yeah, having 2 calls per line may work better. And I found initially
for me, I tried that. I tried having 2 calls. Sometimes I'll do like swing through boys run.
Yeah, can I just finish?
Yeah.
And so I found initially I was having very cryptic shorthand, but I found after a while that the interpretation step got in the way. And sometimes you're better off having VRR rather than VL or VR. And so if you have it too concise, you've got that interpretation step becomes too long. And so sometimes it's just quicker to have part of the call, like veer left or veer right, just an L and R. The other thing that mucks some people is the use of ladies, gents, boys and girls. So you need to be consistent because sometimes those letters can represent something else. Yeah.
Guido made a comment a while back, and it was just about generic writing. When people read, they recognize the style of letters and the flow of letters in a font that they're used to. So upper and lower case allows them to skim because of the shapes. If everything's written in all capitals, it's all block shape. It's harder to read sometimes. For me, I agree with what Alan is saying 100%. Alan finds 1 or 2 notations to a line, sometimes 3, depending on what the sequence is, if it's a flow sequence. I tried that. I found that very, very difficult for me. I prefer 1. Most of the time, if I have 2 movements per line, it's because I want to keep it at a font that I can read at a glance and look over, my computer screen, which is somewhere over there about 10 feet away from me, and see it. But I find it very difficult for me to read 2 or 3 movements on a line at a time. Other callers like shorthand, like Chris has got on the screen right now, past the ocean, chain reaction. I'm assuming that switch to a diamond. And 6-2 bad music group, and diamonds circulate. You know, and this is what Alan is saying. If he gave me these cue sheets and they work great for, this is, I'm assuming A2, I would have to say, right. But I wouldn't be able to call that unless I took all of those and I rolled those out and wrote those out one per line. Because I couldn't translate that.
The let's see if I can figure out.
Go ahead, Chris, and then Joe.
Just trying to figure out how to unshare. But well, anyway, the funniest thing that ever happened to me. Oh, by the way, so reading is just in case this hasn't been said enough. Reading well is a hard skill, and most people aren't good at it, and a lot of people think they're good at it and they're not. So it seems like it should be the easiest thing, but it's not. It's actually probably one of the harder things. But the funny story was I was at a challenge dance one time, and speaking of always having a consistent notation, occasionally people will still come up to me like 20 years later and come over and say, hey, does anybody know what PC means? Because I was in the middle of a tip one time a zillion years ago, and I'm humming along and it's going great, and it says, PC something by something, and I looked at that and I was like, I have no idea. when I encountered it, I couldn't remember what that was shorthand for. Pick and choose was the thing, but so I still have people who come up and give me a hard time about that one day, because I actually said over the mic, I'm following along, and then I'm like, hey, does anybody know what PC stands for? And then of course I just discarded the card and went on calling something else.
Absolutely correct. And you have to, when you find something that works for you, that's the system you use. The same with your resolution. When you find something that works for you, that's the best resolution technique in the world, because you're comfortable with it. I got Mickey and then Joe.
Yeah. Well, dance went good. We had a lot of inlet, outlet, and I guess cold sweat. And they ask, what you do to me. So, yeah, dance was good. Very interesting. And exhausting, brain exhausting.
Yeah, well,
it
you
was
were
a long
going
time.
For what, 6 hours, wasn't it? You had
Yeah,
a 4 hour and then a 2 hour
break. Yeah. It was a good crowd and enjoyed.
That's good. Joe, you had your hand up.
Especially maybe for the newer callers, like Yolanda has mentioned in the past that she had prepared her material for a particular level, and turned out the dancers couldn't handle it, and she had to change pretty much on the fly and try to get everybody back into the level they could dance. Especially at the challenge levels, I write 3 different levels of expertise to be safe, because especially with advanced and challenge, you never know what you're going to get. Some people think they're really great advanced dancers and they really can't handle the great level. So I use colored paper for this. So, if you see me reading off of a red card, you're doing a higher level of challenge. If you see me on the green ones, hey, we're not so good. Yellow, look out, maybe they're all right. And a lot of times I used to write a lot of my material on used flyers because I'm cheap. Didn't want to use good paper. And I could tell what was on that flyer, or by the flyer, what that particular bunch of sequences might have been. So, use every tool you can use to help yourself create that great dance, no matter what. And, none of us are perfect. We might have a whole night. I know Chris doesn't want more than one mistake a night.
Yeah, right.
But there are times when I'm lucky if I get one right. That's when you say, is that your corner? Is that your corner? When they finally say yes, oh, great, do-si-do. And of course, they're already into the element left.
Yeah, but Joe, you're famous for, is that your corner? Is that your corner? Well, not anymore. I've got Roz, then Mickey, then Chris.
With our little plus group, one of our dancers had to whip out, so I had to dance. And our learner was there just watching. And so she decided, can I have a go at just reading it? We didn't actually have music on for her, but mine was in shorthand and I forgot about it. So she started off, heads, PTO. Oh, no, she said, heads, please turn over, first of all. And everyone just went, what? So then we decided, well, let's do the abbreviations. So she actually called the abbreviations and the dancers had to work it out, what was going on. And they had a ball. It was really good fun. And then the person that had gone out came back and we said, right, we'll do it when he comes back and see what his reaction is. So yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah. You can get your dancers to go, you call heads past the ocean, everybody goes PTO. What? Especially if the caller doesn't know what's happening next. You can have a lot of fun with that. I've got Mickey, Chris, and then Brian.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, because everybody was picking on Alan today, I just say, Alan, you know, the more enemies, the bigger the honor, right? No, but just kidding. We as experienced callers can also help beginner callers. I had a big dance I was calling, and there was a beginner caller on stage as well. And he had troubles with the routine. He forgot something when he wrote it up and whatever, and it didn't work. And I was listening and watching, and he was getting nervous like hell. So the tip after him, I went up on stage. We were sharing tips and doing some together. I did the same routine and with the same mistake. Yeah. And then I said, you know, on a microphone, because he was pretty down, right? And I said, you know, that really doesn't work. So it's not your fault. And, you know, there was something, it helped him. The dancers just went, okay, the young one didn't really do a mistake. Something is not working. Of course, it was just, you know, playing around, but it was a good mood. But just that little sentence that really doesn't work, it's not your fault. It helped him. And he relaxed, and it gave him the chance to enjoy the dance as well, following up. And, you know, whenever you're too much tensed, then it's very easy to make mistakes and to be uncomfy. And so this is a thing where we also can help beginner callers. Now, that shouldn't happen every tip, right? And on a big dance, and they have to do your work. But this also may be used as an entertaining tool. Like the one thing when having another caller there and, you know, doing the same mistake, I've done that with Kenny Reese. And we said, then, you know, yeah, that doesn't work. And, you know, Mickey, you better write the routine the next time or rethink it, right? And so we were picking on each other. But always when a beginner caller or not so experienced caller had a mistake and was getting nervous, yeah, we always try to put that turn it into entertaining, right? So, and we as experienced callers can help a little bit for the others to relax.
Absolutely.
A little story from talking about we're not perfect. With my senior people, I've been calling for years and years, and I don't know how long it was, but 15 years, whatever. And it's basic mainstream, and I'm pretty firm in that, and with resolving whatever. But I made a mistake one afternoon, and they just cracked up laughing. I mean, you know, 5 squares down there, they were just having a ball. And I said, wait a minute, what's the matter? I said, well, you made a mistake. You see everything, you correct, you help, but we've never seen you do a mistake. I said, I guess I've probably done some, but you were so busy with yourself. But they were cracking up and having a ball or whatever. And I said, you know, that's not fair, because I'm trying to avoid mistakes, to sing nice, to have nice choreo and whatever. But you're enjoying much more if I do a mistake. Yeah. And they said, yeah, well, you know, that's a ball and we happen to. So then I called the next 3 tips and I did one mistake after the other. And they said, now that's getting boring. Now that's what we do not like. And I said, I thought, you know, I want to entertain you and have you have a good time. Yeah. And I thought if I make mistakes, that be, you know, it's easier for me. I have to try hard to avoid them. So
that's the fine line that people were talking about. It switches from, you know, humor to sarcasm very quickly.
Right, and you got to be careful about it. But you know, we had a ball, and then you know, yeah,
absolutely. Chris, you had your hand up, and then Brian. You're gonna have to unmute, Chris.
There we go. Yeah, I was just gonna add on to I think it was Joe that was talking about having different sets of written material in front of you and having some easy stuff and some hard stuff or whatever. Well, back before I was any good at site calling, and I was afraid to do it, when I went to when I would go call a challenge dance, I would have a bunch of cards. They're paper at the time, right? We didn't have computers yet. But I'd have one pile that I had worked really hard on that was material specifically designed to succeed, like bulletproof material that anybody on this floor is going to be able to do. Still not totally boring material, but it was sort of the bailout pile. If I start calling the dance I had planned and they're just like, that's not happening, or if during part of the dance it's just not happening, then I always had that other pile sitting right there. I just pick up a card from there and I would know that I had some. And it was actually very instructive because back in those days, understanding choreographic difficulty, that was still a big learning process for me. That's a thing that if you're a beginner, that's one of the main things you don't understand. And figuring that out goes on for a long time until you really understand both just the purely the choreography that you're calling, and also the ways in which you can deliver it, all the subtle techniques that you can use to deliver that for success. Anyways, I worked really hard on my written pile of bulletproof, easy, successful cards, and I always had those there that I could jump into if I needed.
Absolutely. I had Brian with his hand up, and then we'll come back to Mickey.
Yeah, thank you, Mel. Before I get into this, I should tell you that when I've done this, I have never had anybody that I know of that has become offended when I've done this. But going back to the shorthand, I occasionally, not very often, because this sort of thing you've got to use in moderation. But sometimes when I'm out on the road calling, I'll use this little gimmick, and I tell everybody on the floor that callers, when they write to each other, they don't write everything out in longhand, they use shorthand. And I said, if we have to learn shorthand, then maybe you should too. So I said, I'm going to call this in shorthand, and I will have first just played section of the singing call and called it normally, and then I stop the music and tell them that. And then I say, so if I say head couples, it's HC. So HC, RNLT is head couples right and left through. And SC, RNLT is side couples right and left through. HLC is head ladies chain. SLC is side ladies chain. And then I'll put the music on and I'll start calling, and I just call exactly that same routine. Head couples right and left through, head ladies chain, side couples right and left through, side ladies chain. And then everybody join hands and CL, and everybody understands what that is. So then I say, with your corner, S. So they all they huddle around and go, oh, that's swing. And then you say, everybody P. And off they go and they promenade around the set. And the punch to the whole thing is right at the very end, when you have a key change or something like that near the end of the thing. 4 ladies, P in the middle, go girls with enthusiasm. And like it usually goes over really, really well with the dancers. Nobody has become offended, and it's just a different way of using shorthand. Get the dancers to be involved with it, but you've got to keep it really, really simple, really simple. Don't try and get too creative with it.
You just hope you don't get a wet ending.
Well, I often tell people at the end of the dance, I say, anybody got a mop? Let's see if we can get a mop out here and clean up.
Yeah. Mickey.
I guess the only caller who could get away with that is Brian.
Yeah, I agree. You didn't try pass out, did you?
No, I did not.
No, it's even more fun.
That would be Kevin Kelly would
when the
use
dancers
that.
set you up for for the joke. It's even more fun when the dancers set you up or start setting you up for the humor and the jokes. That's when
Yeah.
you really know that you've made it, because they're comfortable enough with you to challenge you and taunt you, or they'll sneak up on stage while you're calling and then they blindfold you and wrap you in toilet paper without letting you know. That's when you know you've made it as a caller, because they've accepted you and they know and they trust you.
Yeah. Or splitting up the words like P asked the ocean, right?
Ooh. Guido, is that a hand up or you just waving? You're muted.
I was just waving, but when it comes to mistakes of this kind, I was dancing in a one dance Johnny Preston called, and he called a wheel through after a right and left through, any courtesy turn movement. And I was in position 3 looking at the stage. And so Johnny Preston called this wheel through, looked very scared, and hid behind the curtain. And it took about 30, 40 seconds, at least it felt that way. Then is it too late to say left?
Yeah, he's another one that can get away with stuff like that.
And then he called half of the tip bad body flow, so that everybody knew this is made up now. But he must have practiced it somehow, because there were so many routines with such bad body flow that
it is interesting. That's a gimmick I've seen a few callers do, and it is one of the things that when you're starting out, that new callers often hear is, oh, the body flow on that. Oh, you don't want to call that. The body flow on that. They're going the other way. That's terrible. After a while of calling, an exercise that I give callers at caller schools and whatnot is to write a sequence that has, or not write a sequence. I want you to call a sequence that has really bad body flow, but I want you to time it. So you're calling, and you find that that's when you know you've actually progressed as a caller, because it's very difficult, as Guido said, for Johnny, it had to be practiced. It's very difficult to do it wrong once you understand the basic principles. Your mind will rebel against doing it wrong. You know, if you want to call heads left square through, do the right and left through. Oh, what is that? Do the right and left through, then left touch a quarter, and so far and so on and so forth and whatnot. Your mind will rebel against you calling that. So.
Fan the top, center's trade is great.
Well, you can't miss the flow.
And some girls, if you have them in the center, the ice princess, she will love it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I got something with the reading. Joe said it was one important thing he said, and I'd like to point it out, and that is to look at the floor about the timing. I've had callers, especially in high level, they were calling and reading and reading and reading. I mean, the whole floor was standing. They didn't realize it, and they still were reading. You know, so you really have to. And this is when reading, and I guess it's it should not happen in the basic mainstream or even in the plus level. You should be able to go along without reading, unless you have little notes or whatever, but not reading.
When you say reading, are you saying like having a bunch of written modules out there and putting them together, or are you saying reading an entire choreographic sequence?
Reading an entire choreographic thing, because if you then lose the floor, and if you don't watch the floor regarding timing, this is one thing, but also for the breakdown. And this is a big disadvantage of reading as well. Where will you have points where other dancers who broke down can step in? Like, will you have things like lines, or will you have short sequences, or will you have, which usually is done in complicated choreo to get in and whatever, your sequence is pretty long, and you want to keep in there for a while in order to build up a theme and some excitement and choreographic whatever gimmick, and there's very seldom a step in station, yeah, where you can step in when you broke down. So those are all things you may want to consider when reading is a thing you would like to present. So this is yeah, very important.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Well, we've digressed a bit from the baseline of formation management, but that is fine. There is a lot of really, really good material on discussion. One of the things that was mentioned here was understanding and being able to judge that degree of difficulty. And we've had a couple presentations on that. On the 2nd of July, Jeff Priest will be with us to discuss that specific topic, which it deals with the degree of difficulty, but it's more the aspect of fun versus frustration. And it is something that if you've never had to face it, tune in, because there'll be a lot of good material there. One of the things that I was talking with Don Beck this morning and that group and in this group is we're probably going to be cutting these sessions back to a fortnightly session in July. We'll be doing that. And then we'll see where we go from there. Once again, I want to say a very, very special thank you to Mark Hart. Mark has been acting as my co-host, support staff, IT guru extraordinary for the last 2 years. And he also maintains the OC Callers website with all of these things on it. I was looking through some of the sessions. Some of them have over 360 reviews and downloads. Others have maybe 13, 14 views and downloads. But a lot of people use this material. A lot of people download it or just download the text and the PowerPoint slides as a resource. It is there, but as always, if you have a topic that you would like to have discussed, or if you know a presenter you would like to present on a specific topic, by all means, let me know or let Mark know, and we can get together and communicate and see if we can find somebody to discuss that. If you have a specific thing you would like to discuss or look at, we're going to make that available as well. And also, we're also going to do a couple more sessions that have been requested, just dealing with choreographic management and flow using terminations, practicing the formation management, one call to the next call, getting 2 callers, doing a paired back and forth, doing a couple of formation management exercises, resolution exercises, and those will be complete sessions focused on that, but they will be primarily structured for the new callers. But as always, everybody will be welcome to join those. So that's what's coming up in the this upcoming season. I want to wish everybody well. The national conventions in the States is coming up soon. We may probably still have a session on that day. That's still to be determined, but we'll see what happens. But other than that, if nobody has anything, if you have any more questions, comments, queries, or points, by all means, and I'm more than willing to stay here and leave the room open if you want to have a chat and discussion. But if not, we'll move on. John, you had your hand up.
Yeah, while Mickey's still here. Mickey, is it right that they've taken out the requirement for maximum turn to the corner to do an element left is 1/4? I was reading the definition on element left and doesn't appear to be there anymore.
I have to check, but this is element left is not on any of the working fields of the basic program at the moment. So
because I just downloaded it and there's no mention of maximum turn 1/4 to the.
Where did you download that from?
Caller Lab.
But the definition says
it's the basic dance formation, basic dance program. It's got Caller Lab at the top, Caller Lab logo.
Yeah. I'm just looking at it right now because that was in there.
No, it's usually no. We're not working on an element left definition, but it's facing your corner. turning 90 degrees to the left of to the one or the other side in order to find. Once you've got your corner, it's a left arm turn until you see your partner and release and step forward.
Okay, what they have in the definition is Alaman lefts that require other than a 180-degree arm turn are less frequent. But then at the beginning, it says after that, they have the line that Alaman lefts that require dancers to turn in place more than 90 degrees to find their corner are less frequently used and are in the gimmick category. So,
and the arm turn itself, as the definition said, is at least 180 degree. So
yeah. No, but to turn 90 degrees to the corner, it's in case 2.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's your styling forehand. That's 6B case 2, which is your starting formations of in face and circle, trade by, 3/4 tag, facing lines back to back. And that qualification is anything that requires other than a 90-degree turn is not frequent and falls into the gimmick category.
Because they've got in here that choreography like Alaman left your corner, turn your partner, Alaman right your partner is acceptable. And there they've also got Alaman left your corner, do-sa-do your partner, Alaman left your corner is acceptable. That means you've got to turn 180 degrees to see your corner.
Yeah, but this is because of historic type things, but from the body flow wise, an arm turn would be better. Yeah. But
I always use arm turns, but I think the reason for it is probably because there's too many records with that on it.
Yeah, it's a historical reason, and of course they used it in the old days, and it's a classic type singing call figure. But if that would have been stated wrong or not according with the definition, they would not have put it in the singing call. So at that time, it must have been pretty much a standard or traditional sequence.
Yeah, and this is where they got it clarified. This is the latest Color Lab definitions where it goes in it. And it does say, historically, this is something you have to require the dancer search out and locate by turning in place flow direction or continuing the last command a little longer before doing the Alaman left. See additional details that falls into gimmicks. Then it calls the Alaman left other than 180 degrees is less frequent. We still do Alaman left, do-si-do, Alaman left. It's less frequent to do, but that's still in there from the historical thing. That'll probably never disappear. And then the final thing here is as far as turning in place, they qualify it again after the turn. They say if you have to turn more than 90 degrees to find your corner, that's less frequent and falls also into the gimmick range. It's still in there. What's not in there is if you go back to, I think it's the 80s definition, which is anywhere where you can turn up to 90 degrees to find your corner. And that's out of there because, well, mainly that's out there specifically because of Alaman left, do-si-do, Alaman left.
I mean, you usually turn 180 degree in order to come back to your partner. And this is the intention of an Alaman left, of getting into a right and left grand circle.
Yeah, it's not the arm turn that we're talking about. It's the turning precursor to the arm turn.
Yep.
Right. And therefore I tell my dancers, I teach them that on a clock of a railroad station, because they're mostly still analog and not digital, you're always standing on the 6. And if you're a boy, your corner is always at 7 o'clock. And if you're a girl, your corner is always at 5 o'clock. That means if you're facing in for the boy, it's truly to the left. But if you're facing out, then it would be to the right. But still standing on that number 6, you could face either or the other direction. Now, if you would be facing as a boy to number 5 and your corner would be behind you. Now, this would be something really awkward or something which would have to get into the category gimmick, like Alaman left with the one behind or whatever. But whenever you're facing in, out, or facing directly, so that's 3 out of 4 is where you get to get proper to the corner.
It's
with the
where you
turning
have combinations such as everybody face your partner, do a do-si-do. Now everybody should be now facing their partner, and your next call is Allemande left.
Yeah.
That is an awkward sequence. When it usually happens being done from a circle in motion, and it's the historical precedent and the usage, which is it does fall into the gimmick category, but I think you're right, John. It'll probably never disappear. Chris, you have your hand up.
Yeah, 2 comments on that. Allemande left with the long turning. The thing that in my mind takes it out of the gimmick category, and words that I often will use when I'm doing that is I'll say do-si-do, go back to the corner, Allemande left, and it that's sort of a little weaselly thing of saying go back to the corner. Well, that's a separate call, so this is a perfectly legitimate Allemande left, no matter how you slice it.
It is a perfect legitimate. It's in the basic program. It's called a directional prompt.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing about that Mickey was talking about with helping them figure out where their corner is, because because you could be anywhere in lines facing in, for example, or facing out. You could be anywhere. The lines facing out one, I don't know how much this helps, but one of the things that I show them which maybe it helps some people, maybe not, is I'll when I'm about to do a especially for the first time, an Allemande left from someplace that's a little bit different than they're used to, I'll stop, and because they're beginners and we're in a class and everything, I'll say, all right, so I'm about to call an Allemande left here. Where do you think your corner is? All right, do this, and let's say it's lines facing in, and who knows where they are in the line. I'll just say, the ends, join hands like we're gonna circle, all 8, but don't go anywhere. Okay, now where's your corner? Because if they're in a circle, the very first place they ever learned circle left and Allemande left, the first 5 minutes of the first class, they can see that. And so for the kind of people that will see things and think about it, just telling them it's where you would be if you were doing circle left. That's where your corner is going to be, same place, no matter what. And if you're facing out, you got to turn around. So it's anyway, that's the little helping gimmick, the little teaching gimmick that I use that maybe does some good. Who knows?
Yeah, and what I also tell them, adding to that, is like being in a trade buy formation or whatever, which helps them for anything. We always work straight forward unless we look out of the set, and then it's when we get around the corner. And then usually we work with around the shoulder, which looks to the inside, which kind of gets into a circling action as well, then, especially for the Allemande left, right?
This goes back then really very directly to pretty much all the calls are relative to the center of the square. I had a dancer one time, because I teach, or I used to anyhow, for the guys, your partner's on your right, your corner's on your left. So this guy came up to me after I did from a corner box setup, I did a slide through, square through 3 hands to the corner, Allemande left. Well, after that square through 3 hands, his corner is on his right. And he says, well, you just told me my corner is on my left. So I figured out, oh, yeah, well, it's relative to the center of the square. So like Mickey is saying, if you're facing in and you join your hands and circle left, your corner will be on the guy's left. Or I like that, Mickey, the clock idea, because that explains it really in layman's terms. As a dancer, I can understand that myself.
Yeah, another thing I would like to add, we probably don't even think about, but how many times we start with circle left and then we have an Allemande left. A couple of times I did it the other way around. I said circle to right, Allemande left. And I had some boys jump at me and said, that's not good body flow. And I said, well, let's ask the ladies.
Yeah. A comment was made in the chat, which I'd like to address now. Is you hear this, turn your partner right. Is that different than right arm turn, left arm turn? Yes and no. Arm turns are explained as a defined call, and with an arm turn, it has to give the qualification of how far you know, right arm turn 3/4, left arm turn 1/2, whatever it is. You followed it with a directional prompt. It may, or if you're not giving a direction, you follow it with an indication of where you want the ending position to be. Turn your partner right is also a directional prompt, which says give a right arm turn. That's the turn your partner right. The direction that is turned is followed by a qualification of where you want the ending position. Turn your partner right, full turn, keep her promenade, turn your partner right, back to the corner. That's the directional prompts that are given as a follow-up. They are very, very, very similar. It's a very minor change, and it's a niggling change that only technicians are going to get involved with. But both of them, if you treat them like different ways of expressing, like saying Alamand left or left Alamand, if you treat them kind of like in that aspect, you'll be fine as long as you qualify with how far or a directional indication of to where they're supposed to end up. Your dancers will be fine with either one.
What do you do when they turn their partner wrong?
You enjoy this. Guido, you had your hand up, and then John. Guido.
Yeah, but I forgot what I had to say. I didn't make a note.
Oh, okay. John.
I'd like to add something.
Hang on a second. Is it about what we just said?
Yes.
Okay.
Because talking about a turn through, which Mark asked for the question, turn through is a specified arm turn. It's with the opposite, and you're coming back to the same spot and facing in the opposite direction. So you need an opposite for the turn through part, while you could easily call with your partner turn by the right when everybody would be facing in a circle or whatever, or with lines facing it, or an element left. But on a turn through, you do have to have an opposite, and you work with an arm turn, and then you come back to the same spot. The effect as a U-turn back, but working with someone.
Yeah, the effective turn through has defined finished position, which is a release action standing back to back with the person you turned facing the opposite direction of you started. An arm turn is usually an arm turn does not have that in its definition. You have to define the ending form one way or another by giving a direction.
On a turn through, the turners stay burner to burner.
Never actually thought of looking at it that way, but John, you had a comment.
Yeah, when I'm teaching, I usually teach that an Allemande left has a specific finishing position. You turn your corner or the person you're facing by the left until the man's facing counterclockwise and the lady's turning clockwise. Whereas an arm turn, a left arm turn, you turn until the caller tells you where to finish it. The Allemande left also has the step ahead part in it. So it means you cannot ever keep your corner. If you've done an Allemande left, you can't Allemande left and promenade the same girl. You must promenade the next girl. Whereas an arm turn, you can turn by the left, keep her promenade so that you can actually promenade the person you did the left arm turn with. So that's the difference between an Allemande left and an arm turn. The same thing is with the turn through is a half turn, finishes exactly back to back opposite direction you were facing originally, whereas a right arm turn needs a requirement that you finish facing or doing an action that follows that from the arm turn.
That's correct. We're all saying the same thing. An Allemande left is a release call. A turn through is a release call. The only time they're not release calls is when there's a directional prompt at the end of it that tells you to interrupt, and that's an interrupt call. That's been in the basic definition since before I started square dancing. All they've done is just qualify it and clarify it a little bit. And you're absolutely correct, John. Chris, you have your hand up.
Does anybody ever still call Allemande left hold on roll promenade?
There's an Allemande left keep her promenade, which is quite common, usually after a Dixie style or that kind of a combination. where you have those. 1 second.
I guess the old timey words that we used a lot was roll promenade. The important thing to say is hold on, and you got to say that pretty quickly because you know they know they're supposed to let go, so you got to head that off before you can get them to do it. But I wonder if I was just wondering if anybody ever uses the old terminology roll promenade.
Yeah, because you got to be careful because on a dos paso action with the courtesy turn, you as well could call roll back and take the corner and promenade, which keeps the boys rolling back, right?
Yeah. No, I use roll promenade, but I never use roll promenade in conjunction with an element left. If I would like to have the boys, or if they would like to have the dancers with their corner to promenade, I call a left arm turn. Like in the old Summer Sounds recording.
It's the same as if you're in a left-handed wave with the boys on the end holding their corner, and you want to keep that corner and promenade. Yeah, just. Can I just pose a question about the turn through? If you say in a static square, you have the heads face turned through, what do you expect the formation to be? Inverted line? Or
the heads back to back.
You'll have the head standing back to back because you haven't changed the initial formation of the square by telling him to go into the center.
But with the release and step ahead, do they line up with the sides?
No,
it's a T-boned O.
It's
a T-boned
O.
It is an O.
I'm going to interrupt here for a second. I'm going to have to get going. I've made Mark the co-host, I've made Yolanda the co-host, and Mark, I've made you host. By all means, keep on going. Keep discussing. There's nothing better than having callers discuss choreography and et cetera, et cetera. I do apologize, but I have to get going. I had a call. I have something I have to deal with. But thank you very much for coming in, and I hope to see you all next week. And Mark, the 3rd of July, Jeff Priest is coming in to talk about frustration versus degree of difficulty, fun versus frustration. So I hope that'll be a good session. And Mark, I've sent you the documents, so Mark will have all that posted on the website. I got to go. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, I said that wrong. It's not a T-boned O. It's a regular like an H chain O.
To make that answer short, if you say heads face, you mean they're facing each other, facing their partner. And what formation do you have when you call those four U-turn back? This is the same formation you have after a turn through.
Right.
And it would be after the turn through, it would be an O and H chain through formation in an O.
Right.
So then if you follow that with side step forward, you then would have an inverted line.
Yeah. Press ahead or whatever in what level you are.
Yeah.
Was your question answered with the element left, John?
Yeah, I just don't like seeing people call element left do to do element left, because I think it's, to start with, it's bad body flow, and it technically, with the original definition that I learned from, is contradictory, and this is where I think some of the definitions include contradictions to themselves. It's another one that I don't like is when people call the Alamo swing throughs finishing with a turn through to an Alamo left. If you do a turn through from an Alamo ring, someone's going to be bumping heads in the middle.
Well, you have the ladies or the boys facing in the center instead of back to back.
No, if you have an Alamo, if you would have an Alamo swing through, you would have a turn through action. You would have the boys in an outer circle facing out and the girls in the inner circle facing in, but still you could call an element left because everybody could turn 90 degrees and there you are with the corner. So that would work, but it's not what they usually would expect when because what they would do is kind of getting into a circle movement with the last Alamo action and faking the turn through because they're not standing proper in the Alamo wave, but in a more or less in a ring, converting into a circle type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, the turn through on that little routine is usually intended to be called far enough ahead that they can kind of see what's coming and know that they have to do the fudging.
Yeah, but it's still bad calling.
It's traditional.
No,
On
it's
the other
bad
hand,
calling.
swing through, walking into a right and left grand would be just the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another bad calling with element left is when callers think they're smart and call same-sex element lefts. And when I happen to dance in a square, I just say, well, now I'm finished, but he isn't. We got to turn 180 degrees. Now he's finished, but we need to turn. And I'd break a square down deliberately in that case. So
that's one of Brian's favorite moves, is getting boy, boy, girl, girl, and saying element left and a right and left grand. Some are pretty, some are not. So you can still meet your partner as you come around, but some are pretty, some are not. And Brian's one of these. There's a few other callers around that believe if the dancers will do it, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do it too, and I'd call some go right, some go wrong.
Yeah.
But when you dance an element left, it ends with the boys, with everybody facing in the correct right and left grand direction.
So the boys would be back to back. The boys would be facing the same direction at the end of the element left.
Yeah, should be. They should be facing counterclockwise, whereas the girls facing clockwise. So
now I think we should be more Catholic than the Pope, and if we would call, like, same sex, everybody just don't think or whatever, and you give a hint, do an element left and meet your partner, and I guess that's what you would do, ending in front of your original partner. I see there's, as a gimmick or entertaining, I see no problem doing that, and I don't think that there would be no dancer success on that.
But one could also call as simple as that as a left turn through or a left arm turn to achieve the same thing without misusing the definition of an element left.
Well,
but then it's correct, but not a gimmick.
Well, yeah, the resolve on that is a call I wrote years ago called element left a lot.
The hardest one for the dancers, I think, is the one where you've got a 3/4 turn for one group of 4, and the others have only got a 1/4 of a turn to see their partner, and that one you've got to sort of be very proactive and say, look for your partner, or you're going to lose it.
That's also another thing. The definition of element left says you turn at least 180 degrees. Until you face in the correct right and left grand position.
So some would turn a full circle and a bit more.
Yeah.
My call.
No, now if I would have an 8-chain through formation, head sashay, step in and face a 1/4 out, right? Face the outsides. We have boy, boy, girl, girl facing, right? And from this position, if you would call an element left same sex, come back to your partner, I see absolutely no problem. Right.
Yeah, but some don't say face your partner. They call element left. And sometimes they call right and left grand. And which is also
some do it right, some do it wrong.
Yeah. No,
it should be like an element, like a right and left grand.
What I believe in that sense, especially if traveling callers are doing this, they just come, bend the definitions, leave a big mess for the club callers, and then leave. If they make a lot of, they charge a lot of money to call. And if they can't call the providing fun using the definitions correctly, I think they don't do their job. They're just faking their job.
Understand where you're going.
I used to like to call, back when we could say this, archi-Alamand to an archi-grand, and then you probably get out of it with something like, heads turn through, sides pass through, Alamand left the regular way, and so on.
I mean, and if we're talking about a gimmick, it shouldn't be overused and shouldn't be done on a regular basis or whatever, and should not be sold as the correct or whatever definition or whatever, then a gimmick is a gimmick, and then it needs to be built up properly and needs to work. And if you do that same gimmick over and over, it's not a gimmick anymore. It's just goofing around or whatever.
Oh, well, the thing that I hate is when callers will either just throw it out or maybe even workshop some completely bogus thing that's just like not the definition at all. Trying to do usually a plus or advanced, trying to do some call, from a completely inappropriate formation, and they're just like, it's just not. No, that's just wrong.
Like in the former times with coordinate taking different and then faking some kind of diamond, even if they were in that weird diamond.
Well, no,
the
funny coordinates are okay. I'm talking about. Oh, I don't even remember what it is they do. It's usually some spin chain call from some completely inappropriate place. You know those.
There's a cute example that was done, especially in the 90s, from two-phase lines, split circulate twice. After the first split circulate, you can't split circulate anymore because there is no formation for split circulate.
Yeah, they stole that from the C1 from the plenty type thing.
Yeah, but if it's not a split circulate, the second one at least, you can't, because then you have two offset rise and ocean waves.
Well, you have to remember the first formation. You're doing it from you're doing it from the first formation, which is the two-phase lines. So you do your part twice. You don't stop partway through.
They don't say do your part twice. They say split circulate twice. If somebody understands the calls correctly and calls it correctly, there's no problem. But they see something, they hear something, they don't understand it and misinterpret it, and then they call it.
And just for the protocol, it would not be offset ocean waves, it would be a parallelogram.
What do you mean with parallelogram? These are two ocean waves.
Yeah, but they're not offset. It's a parallelogram. They're like this. And offset.
No, because when you have the same position rule, you go away from the center, so they're offset.
No, there's a different concept between offset and parallelogram. Check.
But the definition says when you go into when you have the same position, you make a right-hand wave and orient yourself away from the center, so these don't overlap.
Well, the part of the question is whether or not you're actually colliding midway through whether you count the collision halfway through the two calls. I think that's.
Yeah, the collision is after the first split at the first split circulate.
Yeah, but then you have a parallelogram and not an offset ocean waves.
Yeah, you have offset ocean waves because the same position rule says you go away from the center. So the center dancer in the two-phase line that walks forward determines his spot, and all others go to the outside. So there is no overlap. The center dancer does not go towards the center of the couple. He's going straight forward.
I think there's a misunderstanding. The parallelogram means the way that they are. It does not mean that we have triple boxes or whatever. They can vary in a parallelogram. An offset is if you would be standing on the other side within boxes, right? And you would have to adjust the boxes in order to get the ocean waves. Then you would be in offset ocean waves. Check the definitions. It's within C2.
But
this is a parallelogram.
This is a parallelogram.
Yeah.
This is parallel.
Yeah. And usually you have two couples forming. The centers always have the complete formation. Yeah, in boxes, like triple boxes, you would have a parallelogram, but you also can have it like this one, but it's always a parallelogram. And the other thing is offset is if each one would turn 90 degrees. If your ocean wave is complete, it's parallel. If it's only half and you would have to adjust the other sides, then it would be offset. I know this is very often misused in other in the lower levels, so in talking to each other. Looking at it, they're offset, but defined in calling a terminology, it's a parallelogram.
So, Mickey, if you have a 8-chain 4, say, and you pass through and you have the outside couple wheel to the right and make a line, that's an offset then, isn't it?
Right.
That's a true offset. You've still got the center box anchoring it all.
Not let me get the other way. No, if you would have let's see, we're in a two-phase line, right? Now everybody just walk 2 steps forward, and you would have a two-phase line in the middle and the other standing forward. That would be an offset. Okay, and you could as well, like taking an ocean wave, parallel ocean waves, and the end dancers taking the center dancer with you and take a little step forward, so you have an ocean wave in the center and the others are only half of an ocean wave, like triple waves. That would be offset ocean waves. Now, could we see some screen sharing? I don't know what that is now, but we probably could have offset or whatever, show that with terminations, if that would be of interest of the group. But yeah, just wanted to clarify the terminology.
So there's your parallelogram.
Right.
It's off. It is using English words. It's offset by 2 dancers from the normal parallelogram, but it's still a parallelogram.
Yeah. Right.
Normally, 4 and 1 are lined up front to back with 3 and 2.
Now, if this would be the ocean wave, if they all would do a hinge, then it would be offset.
Well, yeah, I'm just using offset as it's displaced by 2.
Right.
It's not the concept offset.
Yeah. This would be an offset.
Yeah, or split phantom columns or a bunch of things. Yeah. Yeah, I think I think we were just talking about 2 different things there. When you take the right hand setup as Guido has, you're using the rule right. The end result is the 2 separate waves, and they're displaced 2, which makes it in C2 language parallelogram.
Yeah.
And what is it in basic language?
Displacement.
No go.
No go. Are you in aviation or something? What is this? We had no go.
No man's land.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I got caught up. I was calling teaching
One
basics,
word.
and I had a challenge dancer bring his daughter into the basics class, and I was teaching U-turn back. And I said, heads pass through, and you do a U-turn back, you turn around. And this challenge dancer turned 360 degrees around. And I thought, what the heck is he doing? He should know better. So after 3 or 4 times of this, I cut the tip a little bit short, and I asked him, I said, what are you doing? He said, well, you said turn around. I said, well, yeah, turn around, face the other way. He said, no, that's turn halfway around, you know. I said, oh, yeah, it is. Simple language.
But if you ever happen to get in this parallelogram, what we just had, where the two-faced line doing a split circulate, there's one neat thing as a gimmick you could use if you set it up properly, which would be do a split circulate, swing, and promenade. But you got to set it up proper, and then it would work. And I think this would be a nice gimmick. Yeah, I wouldn't do it at a basic student dance.
No, not at a student dance.
They'll probably do it better than us. Oh,
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you guys. It's been a very entertaining morning. I'm going to go and have some lunch.
Yeah, I've got to go too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you,
guys.
everyone.
Bye now.
Bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
We need to go debate first before we go to lunch.
Yeah.
But you see, it's starting to get daylight again here.
Oh,
Oh,
Probably not at Mickey's place. He's a little. The sun comes a little later to his side.
I will have to wait for another 15 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had a long play record from Ron Schneider one time called Challenging the 50 Basics. And I was a new caller at the time, and I watched a number of different callers teaching their classes. And so I brought this into the one guy's class, and I said, this is really good stuff, I think, not having danced it. I said, why don't we, we can get on the floor and dance it. And the first thing he called was element left, everybody promenade. Heads wheel around and backtrack. So we did the wheel around, thinking the backtrack was a directional cue.
no.
Then he said, keep promenading. Well, we're facing people with a what? We tried that about 3 or 4 times before we decided the record was no good, But I went back home and I worked it out, and I thought, oh, it's 2 different calls. Heads wheel around and backtrack. And of course, we used to do that towards each other. It was a cool call.
There was the
thing worked
couples
out
backtrack.
beautifully. Oh, it worked fine when you did what he said. But again, it's the language we use, the cues we do. Many times that can screw the dancers up.
Yeah, I have that album somewhere.
Yeah, it's a good one. Oh, he does things like, he's got 3 couples facing one way and another couple. Star through, die through, star through, die through, star through, die through. And when you listen to it and you think mentally, you think, well, you can't do star through, die through, star through, die through. The first one's good. But after that, what do you got? Well, get your checkers going. Yeah, good, great stuff.
The 2 funniest things I've ever heard, and I've seen them more than once from people teaching beginners, where they'll use what they think is an ordinary word that everybody should know, and of course it's not. And one of them is cloverleaf. I've seen callers teach a beginner class and say, now we're going to do a cloverleaf. Okay, everybody go forward like a cloverleaf. That was the teach. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, everybody knows what a cloverleaf is, And then I'm like, no, they don't. I'm like, oh no, they do. You're crazy. And the other funny one was from when I learned to dance. I remember my teacher, and I love this guy, and I think he's a really excellent caller, by the way. But on this one little fine point, his teach for run was as follows. He says, okay, now we're gonna learn a new call here. This is running Esselstyn waves or something. And he goes, okay, now boys, run around the girls. That was the speech.
When do you stop?
There's a fun story about Run. If I recall correctly, Don Beck wrote a call once, and he called it Flip and Dodge.
Oh, right, yeah.
And he thought he had a cool call until he called it at a club night and found out he had invented the Run.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
How many of you call hinge a quarter?
Yeah, the 16th.
Yeah, right. A lot of fun.
Well, but
When I
on
teach
the other
Run, by
hand,
the way,
on the other hand, when you say hinge a quarter, one got to see where it comes from. And when you don't say single hinge, but say hinge as a turn around the hinges of a door, like when you hinge a quarter, it's like the other one I heard the other day on a record. Swing your partner like swinging on a gate.
Well, there was a lot of those. That comes from Bugs Bunny's square dance calling day when he had grab an alligator and swing her by the tail, throw her off the cliff, all that stuff.
Whirl, whirl, twist and twirl.
Well, if you mess up in a square, you can always start calling those things. Like I have two that I use a lot. If I'm
roll the old fat sow.
No, I would use shingle the roof, biggest seller. And they all look at you like, what? Oh, you don't know they call square up.
When I teach Run for Real, by the way, when I do it, I actually go out and do a demo, and I grab some volunteer, and I say, all right, so one person's going to be designated to do the running, and then I'm like, okay, so Chris, run around this girl here, and I'll run all the way around her, and I'll come all the way back, and then I'll say, all right, so that's where the name comes from, but I'm actually not going to go around her. She's going to get out of the way and slide over, and I'm going to go in her spot. I'm only going to go halfway. But I actually, the first time I do it, I actually go out there and actually run all the way around her, all the way back to where I started, just so they can have some idea what the name comes from.
Yeah, it's good to get rid of that word around, because it's not run around, it's run into.
Right, exactly.
Every so often there's some lady who's going to reach behind her to help you get over there, and she won't move out of the way.
Yeah.
So, again, that's when you become an offensive dancer and run into her.
Yeah.
And I usually always tell them that it's the next spot right next to you gotta move into, right?
Yeah.
So what I say, when run, then some kind of dancers move all over the floor and go over, then I usually say, I said run, not the phone run, which means to desert, right? That works in German, yeah. So whenever you come to Germany and someone you see with a run, he's going off, I said run, not the phone run.
This is something where most people in the world would not understand.
And we're lucky to have both things, like, sometimes you call trade and someone turns around and you say, I said trade and not umdreht, which means you turn back, right?
Yeah.
The German word for to turn is drehen.
Yeah.
Oh.
And turn around is drehen, yeah. So play the game, right?
And sometimes when I call for dancers who, well, let's say beginners, open house type, I don't call you turn back in German. I call it Radium.
That's the Bavarian type thing.
Turn around. It's just dreh dich um. And since I'm Bavarian, I pronounce it in Bavarian, so everybody knows exactly that is not squared in English. Tradium.
Yeah, I have the routine. If you have the ocean wave, I think it's a number 1 or number 2 with the boy, girl, where you call boys trade, girls trade, centers trade. And then you could call girls trade to have lines facing in, or you call the boys trade or whatever. And everybody's facing out. And I try to set it up that they're half sachet. And then I call umdreht, which gives them regular lines facing in again. And you have that phonetic type play, yeah. And everybody looks. And I did it once in the States, and Ken was there, and he turned around, Mickey, what is umdreht? Yeah, it's always got to be entertaining and gimmick wise, and it was a laugh for everybody, and they were having fun, and it's just a gimmick you do. And
well, you could use it. You could use it as part of your teach, because one of the things that you want to explain is that a trade is a trade is a trade, including an trade.
Yeah, this umdreht, this is it's the same thing as a trade, but the only thing you trade is the facing direction with yourself.
Oh, I see. Oh, it's you turn back. Oh,
yeah.
Then my joke doesn't work.
Yeah, we ought to put out a book on all the different gimmicky things that we can use as fun things. When you do like the Alamo style, heads trade, sides trade, boys trade, girls trade, and then after they've messed it up several times and you've helped them through, and you say, no, I have a better way of doing it, and you go with a heads trade, sides trade, same sexes trade. And once they do that, and you say, yeah, I mentioned sex, and everybody pays attention.
But when you go into that, I usually, I often call, instead of a U-turn back, I call a face right or face left twice for body flow reason. So, but I don't call face right twice. I call face right, or I call face left, face left. Sometimes I have to say it's not an echo. But it's surprising how many dancers choose a different direction for the second one.
Joe, I hate stealing other people's gimmicks, because I think they're all usually very personal. But I'm writing that one down.
Well, just give credit where you got it from, and then you gain credit, credit with the dancers as well, as being humble.
It was like I was talking to Joe Ubelacker, and he just couldn't stop talking about sex.
No. Let me put it this way: if you use that one, you're so far away that we probably never have overlapping dancer populations. You know what I mean? And so it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, but if we give credit to where we stole it from, it does. I think the dancers appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I have a similar thing today. I had the triangle circulate, and triangle circulate, I was correcting one square, and the other one they weren't standing right. And I said, we said triangle circulate. I said, yeah, we've done it. No, we've done it twice. I said it twice. Yeah, but we've done it. I said, yeah, but you need to do it twice. I wasn't stammering. I meant to be. So,
It's when you lock it, and they think you're stuttering.
Yeah. The funny thing is what happens with a square if you have a jam. When 3 words or 4 words get stuck because they don't get out of your mouth at the same time. And we had the element left, and no matter where I called so far, I know I teach the dancers to do an element left correctly. But even my dancers do the same mistake anybody else in the world does. When you call element left and say nothing after that, they keep on to their corner. If you call turn your corner left or turn your corner right, nothing, they let loose and take the step forward.
Oh, note for the beginners, the turn your partner right, turn your partner left thing is really good material for fun nights.
Yeah.
Get a lot of mileage out of that.
And if you do it with beginners, with open house type, don't use arm turns, use stars. 2 people, 4 people. You have one thing less to teach. When you teach stars for 4 people, you can do stars with 2 people. They do it without teaching. If you take arm turns, you have something else to teach.
Yeah, but my left element is a whole shtick of its own. It's shake hands with your corner, left hands with your corner, keep a hold, walk the fingers up to the elbow, just the elbow, and you emphasize, because some guy's going to go wandering a little further than the elbow. So it's a whole shtick. But the stars are a super thing for beginners, because you get 2 couples, circle left, circle right, keep circling right, put your left hands in the middle. You got a left hand star. They just do it, Reverse the star brother right. Man, you got loads of dancing with one call. I mean, and for the new dancers, non-dancers, all that you care about is moving, but they do want a dose of dough.
Something that new dancers do, but your club dancers have difficulty with. If you say, boys, make a left-hand star, make a right-hand star in the center, find your corner, make a left-hand star with your corner, 2 people, make a right-hand star with your partner, go full around, get the next one, make a left-hand star, go full around, and you call a detour right and left grand this way. Your club dancers can't do it, but the new ones can.
Yeah.
Well, with the holding on action, I'm not sure whether this is a thing which goes back to Larry Letson. I mean, he's been a caller and he's done some comedy. And I remember a thing when he told that he was on the road and had his tooth was hurting and he couldn't find a doctor, whatever. And then finally he got somewhere out town in a 1-horse town, as he would call it. Found someone who could help him, and he wanted to give him a shot of penicillin. And he said, no, I can't take it because I'm allergic. And he said, well, you can take a whole bunch of aspirin that may work. And said, no, I can't take that with the stomach. I couldn't get that. And said, well, you may want to take this blue pill here. I said, what's that? Well, that's Viagra. I said, and that works? No, but then you've got something to hold on.
Viagra was invented as a painkiller.
He put it on some kind of, I think he has a singing call, whatever, CD, and he has one or the other joke on there. You just crack up laughing. I think this one was one of his best. Yeah.
Alrighty, guys, I gotta go.
Yep.
It's getting early.
Bye, Joe.
Bye.
Bye, Joe.
Yeah. Daylight's coming.
Yes.
Well, here it's the other way around. Nighttime is coming.
Another 2.5 hours.
It was very interesting and entertaining today, I gotta say. It's really enjoyed very much with you all.
Okay.
And Chris, I have not forgotten you. We're gonna work something out.
I know you're super busy. I just wanted to make sure it didn't get lost.
Yeah. No. All cool.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
I am going to go, and then you guys can do upper level Whatever.
I think I'm going. I'm going to bed.
Well,
Yeah.
for some people, the sun is coming, and for some people, the dark is coming. And for me, I'm going to go make it so that the pizza is coming. So I guess I'll
There you go.
sign off here.
When
Nice to see you all.
Okay.
Okay.
Enjoy.
That must be great, Guido, spending the day sleeping now.
Well, when I moved in here, we were talking to my dad on the phone, and my dad told told Ilra, my wife, Guido is getting up with the first sunbeams, and she didn't understand the word. I said, but didn't you say that your bedroom goes to the west? So when the sun is in the west, we have the first sunbeams for me to get up.
Mm.
No,
Okay.
Now, I had trouble this morning. I could not get my Zoom to work. I tried it with Yoletta, and then I ended up spending a couple hours working on my computer until I got it to work. It was frustrating. Then I fell asleep, and I just woke up a little while ago.
I was wondering because you said you were going to be at the beginning on Mel. Yeah.
Oh, I fully planned to. And it's just a little wait, so I went over there, sat in the recliner, boom, I was gone. Happens to be a lot in the afternoon.
Yeah.
You're going to have to start setting an alarm.
You sound like my wife.
Being practical.
In Germany, we call that, translated into English, soup coma.
Soup coma. Well, I've had food comas.
Yeah.
It's like eating turkey, right?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of
There's-
people, if they eat turkey, they'll doze right off.
Yes. There's a reason.
Chemical reaction.
Well, what L-tryptophan, is that what's in it in turkey that makes you go to sleep?
Yeah, there's something in it. I'm surprised that their parents don't serve it more to their kids.
Great idea. Post it on Facebook. How to put your kids to sleep. Give them turkey.
Okay, well, I am going to work on a singing call that Bob gave me today to work on as homework, which is due tomorrow. Getting one day to get it done. So I think I should go work on it. Okay. Mark is still host, so you guys are fine without me.
I'm gonna leave too.
Or I can make somebody else co-host if you want to have.
No, I'm gonna leave. So
The only ones that'll be left will be Mark and Mel.
right.
Yeah. Well, have a happy Pentecost weekend.
Okay, sorry I missed it earlier.
Well, there's Bob. There's such a thing as the fact that it's been taped, so you can always watch it later.
Well, I love hearing about my friend Ron Schneider. We were close friends, especially toward the end. He was incredible. He was my idol as a square dance caller. And I had all his albums and his timing. I remember one year we had our big festival, the Golden State Roundup. And we had these callers here, and everybody wanted to do the advanced and challenge part. And I told the members of my club, it'll be a lot more fun with Ron Schneider because I guarantee you, He will call stuff that'll blow you out of the water that won't be. And he called such an amazing session. We danced close. We were doing parallelograms and stuff like that at the mainstream level. And you could do it. It just, the way he led into things, it didn't matter. You know, you just followed what he said. It made sense. You did it. And it danced and it felt good. Incredible man.
Must be nice to have all that stuff to remember back on.
Yeah.
You know, with so many dancers, you know, like halls and halls full.
Ron had given up on calling, and he was in Tennessee, and I flew out to Tennessee to teach him how to put his music on the computer and use it and call, and I actually gave him my library of songs and music and got him back into calling again before he passed. He had a great couple of years. He loved it. He loved square dancing. It was wonderful. Yeah, but I went all the way from California to Tennessee to see him.
Well, then it sounds like it was something that was worth doing.
Oh, it absolutely was. And years before, I flew to Hawaii to meet Les Gocher. And my mother wanted me to take a trip with her to Hawaii, and I took it on the condition that I could have one day off to go visit Les. And I did. I drove out in the morning. We spent the whole day together before we got back. We were communicating via email back before we had Chrome or anything like that. You know, it was just had a 32K modem or something like that. It was really slow, and it was just all text messages. I loved his philosophy about dancing, how he described how we were ruining dancing, and it was doomed to go away. You know, because we were removing all the twirls and flourishes in square dancing that made it a dance. You know, the dive throughs were going away. The curly cue went away. Curly cue was such a popular call when it was out. Dancers loved it, but we catered to those who were going into rehab, and we removed anything with an arm twirl or anything. You know, one of the most frustrating things that I find is that you get a modern square dance floor and they will not swing.
Yes.
Those same people you call do-sa-do, and they replace it with a swing. Go figure.
Yeah, they need the energy for the waist swing.
I guess.
And
or the round dancing where they do it all around their head.
And sometimes I think the waist swing should be spelled W-A-S-T-E, swing.
Yeah.
Because they waste a nice call. They waste the time for a swing.
Yeah. I wouldn't even care if they did a waist swing, you know, around each other for a swing, but no, it's just a swing. Your partner means promenade home.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's evolved into.
I'll fight it a little by calling the swing to a promenade. If I call swing to a promenade, I put him in the half the shade position. Like you have the corner box and call something with the effect of a box to net and call the swing then. Then they need to go around.
Well, I call for a plus group every once in a while, and they won't even do an Alamo left anymore. They just tap hands.
Yeah.
So which totally wrecks, like if you want to do something, all your timing has to be adjusted. Because otherwise they just stand there. It's like Alamo left, swing, they stand there. Promenade, oh they don't want to do promenade either.
No.
So they just stand there. They just stand there. It's like, okay.
Well,
yeah, I've realized that, especially with the sea dancers, and I said you should only do that if after the element left you would be home, because otherwise if you do other stuff working in a circle movement or with other concepts in those levels, then they just blow the square because they're not within the flow or whatever. If you come back for an all eight spin the top or stuff like that, or half tops if you're in the A or whatever, I don't like those shortcuts.
Yeah,
right.
So, but I found that if I call the right or left grand, they'll promenade after that. So they're getting, but they don't seem to like weaves too much. They'll ignore that. So I've cut out all my weaves, changed them all to right and left grands, and then they'll. And I figured, okay, there's ways around it.
Where they come out when getting home, if they have to do their promenade, right?
Yeah.
This is my personal opinion. You shouldn't call a promenade when they're to start the promenade when they're at home, unless the promenade has a different purpose than getting them back home. Whenever you want them to promenade, make it a 3/4 promenade or a half promenade, but not a 360-degree promenade. So give them the promenade, but turn the square about 90 degrees first. Then it's okay. But a lot of people don't want to promenade because too many callers call promenade home when they already are at home.
Yeah, that's the equivalent of a short promenade. Yeah. But I mean, this group doesn't matter where you are in the square; they just don't want to promenade. It's I think they've been dancing to tapes, and so they're so used to ignoring the tape caller. It's like, okay, we have a break.
I just the other night, it really does annoy me when they won't promenade. They want to just stand there, and that is so friggin' tiring, and it wears you down more than the promenade does. And so I get them in a corner wave, and I call them boys run and couples circulate, go twice, and promenade home. So the first half of the promenade is a couple circulate twice.
You could do something with them that I do for teaching purposes sometimes in my club. Say, I give you a call, and you just go to the final position where you end the call. You don't dance the call, just go to the final position.
There you go.
And you start easy with, let's do a dos a do. Then do a square through. That's all easy. And then you can spice it up and say, let's do an 8 chain 4. Or a related do CM plus, they have the same thing. And then say, oh, you seem to be smart. And then call a spin chain exchange the gears. or a chain reaction in A. Then you see him start thinking the entire movement, where they need to go.
Yes.
And of course, you don't need to give them the proper timing, because if they just walk 4 steps, it's 2 beats of music.
I'm glad I learned how to dance in the 70s and 80s.
Mm. Yeah, I do a thing that I guess could be qualified as being in a gimmick mode. But you got the call scoot back. And you can do scoop back from parallel waves or a 3/4 tag, but I do it from tidal waves because I teach if you're an outfacer, you step forward 2, turn to the right, and come back. So I'll do it from a corner line, single circle to a wave, I'll scoop back to a right to left through. But how I teach it in styling in my beginner classes, because I do this in beginner classes also, that the outfacers should always take 6 steps to get to where the infacer is. It's just not, it's just don't quarter turn, step in their space and face in again. You walk out 2 steps, turn around and come back. Because I believe in dancing. And if everybody takes 6 steps, it's very smooth. And when I do that, and then just last week I started doing from a box right to left through Dixie style. You're in the left-hand wave, right? So do a follow your neighbor. Step forward, turn left 3/4, and you have a right-hand column. And it's it dances well. But it never fails that a challenge dancer comes to the dance and says, you can't do that. And of course, my answer is they did. They just did it. You learned it. There's the in-facer part and the out-facer part. Why can't you do it? And to me, they've never sold it to me that I can't do it. And I love it because it's really cool if you're doing the advanced, you get them into a tidal wave, do a follow your neighbor to a triple cross and an AC-doocy and spread.
What an awkward way to just call a U-turn, to call a trade.
It's not a trade.
A scoot back?
Oh, a scoot back is a trade, yes. It's not an awkward, it's a very smooth flowing dance action.
Yeah, I understand that. But it's just like turn through. What an awkward way to call U-turn back.
Yeah, there you go. But when you do the scoop back from the tidal, you got a timing situation. So you're in the tidal wave, you do a scoop back to a square through 3. It's very, very nice flowing. Or square back or scoop back to a right to left through. You could do these things and they're smooth because people establish a distance and they see the person coming toward them and they can move slowly into the next dance action that you want. But that's just the thing. And I guess today I learned, I defend myself and I'll just say it's a gimmick. It's a gimmick.
I can
So
see
if
it.
you call it, you would straight call it scoot back, or would you say with the phantom in front or whatever? Or...
No, I just call it scoot back. When you from parallel waves, if you have people facing out and you call scoot back, they know what to do, right? Because there are 2 parts. There's a part for the person facing in. There's a part for the person facing out. And it's always done from many waves of 2. So you have to establish a right-hand tidal wave is a right-hand setup. A left-hand tidal wave is a left-hand setup.
Yeah, I understand your idea where you're getting, but since we have a starting formation, that's why I was a little bit worried about it.
But for teaching purposes, I think it's a great idea.
I understand the flow. It's nice, but yeah, maybe we would have to either adjust the definition or whatever, or find a new call for it.
Yeah, well, I just at my advanced class, I said, when I say scoot back from here, this is what I want you to do. And so
what I like about this idea is my dancers, probably Mickey's dancers, also sometimes ask, what does this call mean in German? And I was looking up and said, to scoot also means get lost, catch a rabbit. And back means
return.
Return woefully and humble. So when you apply this, say, well, just go away and then decide, no, it's not such a good idea, and humbly return
But I
to the
tell you
same
what,
person.
working from boxes, at least one catches a rabbit and comes back. Now, from a tidal wave, no one catches a rabbit. He just comes around again.
Yeah, but if I think about the meaning of words, and say, this is something I can explain to my dancers.
Yeah, it doesn't work with everything. Like right, left, big, right, left, grand doesn't work really.
No, it does not work with, but right, left, grand has a German name, Kette.
Right.
In German folk dancing, and but there are some words, and what I can explain is that grand usually means that all eight dancers do it, and as the four ladies chain was called grand ladies chain, a grand chain. So everybody is involved in the square instead of just a subgroup. But there's not a thing that you cannot translate everything in a sensible way. Just like take the call box the net, for instance, which is actually misspelled the way we have it now. It used to be a box the net, NATTE, like a mat on the floor. But when this call was written up, I guess it was Cecil Rhodes who did it, the other word was already not used anymore. So the only net he understood was the GNAT.
That's interesting.
And so when people want to know, sometimes I go the extra mile to find out the reason behind a call or the real name.
So when you're explaining a new square dance move, do you often use demo squares, Guido?
Not often. I use demo squares where it really makes sense that the dancers can see something.
Okay, so do you
because
teach? So do either you or Mickey teach in German?
For a big part.
Oh yeah, you got to explain
it
it in the
German?
native language. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I especially don't teach in German. I teach in Bavarian.
Yeah. I have to teach in German because people wouldn't understand me here if I spoke Bavarian. But I use demo squares after I show them a call maybe if they don't get my explanation. But once they have done a call 2 or 3 times, and then I show them how it's done, they can see the finities of the call. When I show them a call at first, they don't know what to look at. They just see people moving. But what I do show is, for instance, when I teach circulates, I try to get the students up on a higher level so they can look down on a square. And then I teach the circulates, and I teach, and then I explain all circulates. I even make diamond circulates and hourglass circulates. So if you can identify your formation in your path, it really doesn't matter what circulate there is.
Yeah.
And when they see that, then circulate is not a problem anymore. but this is a pattern they can relate to. And then I even teach circulates from facing lines, out facing lines, just to get across. It really doesn't matter if you have oncoming traffic or not. It's you have to identify the path you go in, the circle you go in, and you stay in the circle. And if somebody comes across oncoming traffic, you have the passing rule. Pass that person by the right shoulder.
Yeah.
And if somebody says, do we need that? Especially graduated dancers often come with stupid questions in that sense. Why do you teach that? They don't need it. Yes, they need it. If I call an all-eight circulate in a 3-in-1 line, they must know that.
You know what the most important hint is for any circulate, no matter how far you go up in the level? Whatever shoulder shows to the center has to show to the center all the time, working around your circulating path. And it doesn't matter if it's a crossover circulate, a triangle, or whatever, anything, you ping pong, whatever, it is always working around the same shoulder. If you have the right shoulder pointing towards the center of the set or your circulating path, it's got to be that same shoulder every time.
I used to use a turntable to demonstrate stuff like that.
Well, I always teach that there's only one circulate, but there's different patterns, and it's connected dots, and it's square dance's version of astronomy. We look at the stars and we pick up a few stars and we define a shape. We do the same thing as square dancing to do our circulates.
Good way to explain it.
Cool, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Be even more fun if it's a dark night. You can actually go outside.
I know, and do a Big Dipper circulate. I got you.
Anyway, Joanne, I've got to give it a call. So
Okay.
take care.
It was nice seeing you, Michael.
Yeah, same with you, Bob.
Thank you.
See you next time again.
I hope I wake up in time.
Yeah. we kept Guido up until it's daylight now. So.
Oh, man. Well, that's all I do now with my broken foot, is spend a lot of time either in bed or in the recliner.
Oh, yeah. How's your recovery doing, Bob?
It's doing well. It's doing well. It's doing well.
That's good to hear.
So, and I'm really paying close attention and avoiding putting weight on my foot. And I'm going the extra mile to do what the doctor wants this time, because I broke my foot once before and I tried to walk too soon. That's a lesson learned.
Okay.
Walking too soon with a broken leg, broken foot, that's not a good idea.
No.
That's just figuring out that you need more patience than you have.
Yep.
Yeah. Also, you all take care.
Yes.
See you.
Okay.
Next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, Michael.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Guido, bye-bye. Say hello to Edeltraud.
Bye. And see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
It's just you and me.
Yes, I've got most of the song done. I wrote while they were talking about certain things. So the only thing is I don't know if I should go to the original music or what, because they have 3 side space grand square, but they're duplicating the second, the middle break and the ending, the closer. So
that doesn't hurt.
So it's like, okay, shall I go on the original and see what else there is in the original song? But other than that, it's and I've got it to non-progressive. So it's Heads Promenade halfway, walk in, square through 4, swing through, boys run, couple circulate, half tag, hinge, pass through, swing, and promenade. And so
What was that again?
we did, a couple of the guys helped me with it. We ended up with like several different versions. So heads promenade halfway,
Yes.
square through 4,
Right.
swing through, boys run,
Yes.
couple circulate, half tag.
Half tag. Yes.
That's all original, right? Then instead of what so and then it's hinge, pass through.
No.
What do you mean no? You don't want to rewrite my card.
Do you mean hinge and step through?
Yeah, they said step through or pass through. They said doesn't
No,
matter.
no. There's two different calls. Hinge and step through.
Okay.
You don't pass through from the wave.
Okay, so just make it step through and then it's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Step through. Since they said it didn't matter, I figured, well, everybody knows pass through.
Well, I've just become, it's a stickler for me anymore because I just use step through from waves. I never call pass through from a wave. You could say spin the top to a pass through because you say pass through before they form the wave. But once they form the wave, it's a step through.
Okay, so step through. And we're still recording. Mark is still recording, by the way.
No.
So step. Okay. Somebody's got goodies.
Yeah.
I can't say too much. I was eating cheesies. I took the video off.
Oh, my glasses came.
Yes, I knew it before you did. Who brought them to you?
What's this? What happened? Oh, there we go. Lost my monitor for a second. I'm curious. I don't know what this other package is. Oh, I know what these are. Awesome.
Well, that doesn't help. You blipped away.
There we go.
Okay.
They're pulleys for my flower pots, my hanging flowers, so I can reach up, grab the pot, pull it down, water it, and push it back up.
I've heard of those.
Yeah.
You'll have to tell me how well that worked how long.
Yeah.
I guess you'll have to get somebody to put them up for you because they're high up, so you wouldn't.
Yep, I will have to. Now I got to make an appointment and go in and have my frames adjusted.
Oh.
You know,
Yeah.
because they sent them directly to the house, so they haven't been fixed.
What do they look like?
I will put them on in a second. I bought tanks. I'm tired of my glasses breaking. Oh, wow. These are clear.
Oh, you can see better.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I mean, there's all the difference in the world. Oh, that's my reading glasses.
Okay.
Oh, gosh, that means these are distance. And I'm going to say goodbye. It's movie time. So, whoops.
Congratulations. It's always nice when you have glasses that you can see better with.
Yes.
Okay. I will
Bye.
phone you. I'll phone you tomorrow. Bye.
35 years from now, they'll not only call what not called jazz, they'll call it America's classical music.